Chapter 1235. There were many rogue cultivators in the Chaos region. After joining the Bawang sect, Su-Yi would rather not keep these people if they could not abide by the rules of the sect, no matter how strong they were. Different opinions and voices could appear in the sect, but at critical moments, they must obey orders. The Bawang sect would become the support of everyone, and all the benefits would be shared. However, no one was allowed to have disloyalty and disregard the rules. After the torture hall, we will set up the Golden Hall. All the assets and city management of the Bawang sect will be controlled by the Golden Hall. No matter if it's from external operations or from expeditions, they cannot be hidden. All the expenses of every hall will be reported to the Golden Hall. Only when everything is in order can a small stream flow continuously. This is the foundation of the Bawang sect's endless growth and steady rise. Su-Yi lowered his voice a little and looked at the skinny old man sitting on the big chair below. Under his gaze, Wang Zhengquan straightened his back and was full of energy. He knew that there would be a place for him in the important position of the Golden Hall. In the past few months, all the assets of the Bawang sect, most of which were primordial stones mined from the mines, were now in Wang Zhengquan's hands. That was the true foundation of the Bawang sect. The current Bawang sect was no longer as poor as it was a few months ago. Even Su-Yi owed a huge debt to the Lingbao Pavilion. Su-Yi retracted his gaze and continued. In addition, set up the Soul Hall and recruit blacksmiths, alchemists, and soul controllers with a large sum of money. In the future, all the weapons used by the Bawang sect disciples will be provided by the Soul Hall. The elixirs needed will also be refined by the Soul Hall. If there are any leftovers, they could be sold to the Golden Hall. Everyone was silent. The Soul Hall was destined to be an extraordinary place for the Bawang sect in the future. Blacksmiths, alchemists, and soul controllers were 1 in a million. The last outer hall will be in charge of the outer sect. As for the recruitment of disciples, the outer hall will take care of all trivial matters, Su-Yi said. Shadow Hall, Martial Hall, Torture Hall, Metal Hall, Soul Hall, External Hall, and Heavenly Demon Temple. Merciless West took out her wine gourd and poured a mouthful of wine into her mouth. Su-Yi chuckled and said nothing. He had stayed at Shunjing Gate for a period of time. Everything was roughly made according to the specifications of Shunjing Gate. According to the differences in the Bawang sect, there was an additional Heavenly Demon Temple. If they wanted to build the Bawang sect into a truly large sect, they would need to be meticulous. He had wanted to do it for a long time, but the time had not been right. Now that the number of Bawang sect members was increasing, it was time to put it on the agenda. The Bawang sect doesn't have enough manpower now. I have the following arrangements for the 6 halls for the time being. Su-Yi spoke again and looked at everyone in the hall. Huang Jian will be the first guardian of the Bawang sect, and Wang Zhengquan will be the second guardian. From today onwards, Elder Huang will be temporarily in charge of the Martial Hall, and Elder Wang will be temporarily in charge of the Metal Hall. Do the 2 of you have any objections? After hearing their names, Huang Jian and Wang Zhengquan's spirits were lifted. We will listen to the sect master's arrangements. We have no objections. Huang Jian immediately stood up and cupped his fists at Su-Yi as he spoke in a deep voice. We will not disappoint the sect master. Wang Zhengquan's eyes were also shining with excitement. The 2 of them could not help but feel their blood boiling and their emotions surging. Among all the people present, they had the deepest experience. Ever since they followed Su-Yi, their cultivations had advanced by leaps and bounds. They had also watched the Bawang sect develop and grow rapidly. And now, as the first and second guardians of the Bawang sect, they were also entrusted with important tasks by Su-Yi. They were respectively in charge of the Martial Hall and the Metal Hall. This was something the 2 of them would never have dared to imagine in the past. It must be known that the current Bawang sect was already considered to be in the category of second-rate forces. Although there was still a big gap between them and the truly powerful second-rate forces, Huang Jian and Wang Zhengquan both believed that the Bawang sect will be truly powerful in the near future. As long as their performance was good enough, the 3 words, acting hall master, were not without the possibility of becoming Hall Master. I will have to trouble the two guardians for these 2 halls. Sui nodded and expressed his satisfaction. Then he looked at Nangong Ningyue. Nangong Ningyue, you will temporarily take the position of the external hall master and be responsible for all matters related to the recruitment of disciples. Nangong Ningyue will not disappoint the sect master. Nangong Ningyue was stunned at first. Then, waves suddenly appeared in her eyes as she said in a powerful voice. She did not expect that Sui would actually let her temporarily take the position of the external hall master. The management of the external hall is very important, but your own cultivation cannot be neglected. I hope that one day I can truly call you Hall Master Nangong. Sui quietly looked at Nangong Ningyue and said softly. Being stared at by the youth, Nangong Ningyue's delicate body could not help but tremble as if she had been electrocuted. She knew that this was Sui's performance of true trust in her. However, her current cultivation base was only at the middle level of Yuanjin realm. As the Bawang sect gradually grew stronger, such strength would be difficult to convince the masses in the future. Therefore, Sui said this. Rest assured, sect master, I will definitely work hard to cultivate. Nangong Ningyue said again, but her words did not have much confidence. Sui finally stared at her and did not say anything. Nangong Ningyue was still young. If she wholeheartedly cultivated, her future achievements would not be bad. However, Sui valued her ability more. The Bawang sect's current mountain gate was single-handedly arranged by her. A large number of the sect disciples were also recruited by her, including Wang Zhenquan. It seemed that in the future, he still had to think of a way to raise Nangong Ningyue's strength. Only with enough strength could her abilities be fully displayed. Old Lei. Sui's gaze shifted. This time, it was looking at Lei Yunhe, who was sitting at the head of the table below. If Sect Master has any orders, Lei Yunhe will do his best. Facing Sui's gaze, Lei Yunhe stood up, gently bent down, and said sonorously, Good. Sui nodded and said, Then from today onwards, Old Lei will be the chief elder of the Bawang sect. As for the Soul Hall, it will be handed over to Old Lei. However, I may have to inconvenience Old Lei. Right now, you're the only one in the Soul Hall. At the end of his speech, Sui could not help but spread his hands, feeling helpless in his heart. There were too few artificers, alchemists, and soul controllers. The Bawang sect did indeed have several such people. Sui himself, his big brother Merciless West, and Feng Qi. However, these 3 people could not be placed in the Soul Hall. Needless to say, his big brother and himself, Feng Qi, would definitely be accepted as a disciple by his big brother in the future. It was not suitable for her to become a member of the Soul Hall. Hearing Sui's words, Lei Yunhe suddenly laughed and said, Then I will have to trouble Sect Master to recruit more useful subordinates for this old man in the future. Chapter 1236. After spending some time together, Lei Yunhe also knew that almost all the experts of the Bawang sect were robbed by Sui, including himself. Lei Yunhe felt that it was not scary that he was the only commander in the Soul Hall. As long as the sect master was around, he would definitely be able to continuously replenish the Soul Hall with new blood. Moreover, this way, it would be much faster than relying on the Bawang sect to nurture them themselves. In fact, Lei Yunhe was not very willing to join the Bawang sect at first. Everything was to protect his life because he still had things he wanted to do. Even if he had to compromise and be forcefully included in the Bawang sect, he would not hesitate to work for Sui. However, today he increasingly felt that following this youth was not a wrong decision. When the mysterious space changed, he had obtained too many benefits, and his cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Hearing Lei Yunhe's chuckle, many people in Hall couldn't help but curl their lips. However, Sui did not respond and only maintained his smile. Kid, the Martial Hall, Metal Hall, Soul Hall, and Outer Hall have been arranged. What are your plans for the Shadow Hall and the Torture Hall? Merciless West looked at Sui and asked. The Shadow Hall and the Torture Hall are indeed difficult to handle for the time being. There are no suitable candidates to be the hall masters. He frowned slightly. There was no one suitable to take over the two hall masters in the Bawang sect at the moment, which made him feel a little troubled. In fact, he had considered choosing two people based on his discretion. However, after weighing the pros and cons, he felt that it was not suitable. It was because every hall master's position was extremely important. Such a position was very high in the Bawang sect. Not only did it have to consider one's ability, but it also had to consider whether one was trustworthy. For example, Elder Zhou, Elder Sun, and the others who had originally surrendered to the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect and the Heavenly Spider sect. Regardless of their abilities, Su Yi's trust in them was still lacking. Let's leave the Shadow Hall empty for now. I will think of a way to build it up step by step. Sui thought for a moment, then looked at Merciless West and said, As for the torture chamber, why don't I manage it myself for the time being? Do you have the time for that? Merciless West rolled her eyes and took another sip of wine from the gourd. Then, he was taken aback, but when he thought about it, it made sense. As the sect leader of the Bawang sect, he would face many complicated matters that the disciplinary hall might not be able to handle. How about you do it, big brother? Suddenly, Su Yi's eyes lit up as he spoke. Merciless West was stunned by his words. She wanted to refuse, but she didn't know how to refuse in front of so many people. At the end of the day, the Bawang sect had its share too. However, just as the atmosphere was getting a little weird, a plump figure rushed in from outside the main hall and appeared in front of everyone in an instant. It was a beautiful middle-aged woman. Kid, I want to get a high priest position in the Bawang sect. Are you going to give it to me? Impermanence Fairy, Yu Chiohan, asked Su Yi as soon as she arrived. In an instant, Su Yi, Merciless West, Green Emperor, and the others were all shocked and confused. Why did Impermanence Fairy ask for the position of High Priest the moment she appeared? Many people fell silent. The position of High Priest was different from ordinary positions. Other than the sect leader, it was the position with the most authority in the entire sect. To a certain extent, the position of High Priest was not inferior to that of the sect leader, because it was a figure that even the sect leader had to respect. Otherwise, how could she be worthy of the title of High Priest? Sister Impermanence, are you willing to join the Bawang sect? Unlike the others who were shocked, Su Yi reacted quickly and his eyes lit up. It was great news that an expert like Impermanence Fairy was willing to join the Bawang sect. He should definitely welcome her. However, this woman had a strange personality and her methods were ruthless. He did not know if there would be any trouble when they got along in the future. Of course I'm serious. Impermanence Fairy curled her lips and said, Kid, just give me a straight answer. It doesn't matter if you don't want it. I'm not begging you. Big brother. Su Yi did not make a decision immediately. Instead, he looked at his big brother, Merciless West. A helpless smile crept onto the old man's face, but in the end, he nodded gently. Seeing this expression, Su Yi understood. Well said, well said. If Sister Impermanence Fairy is willing to join the Bawang sect, of course I welcome you. Su, he immediately said and stood up from his seat. He waved his hand and gestured for Impermanence Fairy to sit on the seat on his right. He rubbed his hands excitedly. In fact, Impermanence Fairy was considered one of his own. She had even entered the mysterious space before. Suki did not have anything to distrust. The main thing was that his big brother, Merciless West, nodded, which made Su Yi feel very relieved. G faster. Hashtag new. S fastest on RW. Impermanence Fairy Yu Chiohan also didn't act coquettish and pretentious. She sat down as if she was an outsider, but her beautiful face still had an extremely rigid and cold expression. Suddenly, Su Yi's eyes lit up again. He could not help but say, Sister Impermanence Fairy, I have something to ask, but I don't know if Sister Impermanence Fairy is willing to do it. I'm a high priest, so I'm also a member of the Bawang sect. Just say what you want to say. Impermanence Fairy said. It's like this. Currently, the Bawang sect has 6 halls and 1 hall. The other halls have suitable candidates for the position of acting hallmaster. Only the Shadow Hall and the Torture Hall are left. I can't consider the Shadow Hall for the time being, But if Sister Impermanence Fairy can come forward to manage the torture hall, that would be the most suitable. Of course, I won't always let Sister Impermanence Fairy handle matters of the torture hall. When I find a suitable person in the future, I'll let Sister Impermanence Fairy take charge of the Bawang sect in the position of a high priest. So, he said. He looked at Impermanence Fairy's frosty face and felt that it was best for her to be the hall master of the torture hall. In fact, Impermanence Fairy's personality was fickle. She did everything according to her preferences. So he could not say whether she was willing or not. I thought it was something big. Impermanence Fairy glared at Sue E and said, I'll take this job. The torture hall is in charge of the law. If there's a problem, just punish them severely. If it's more serious, just kill them. Sue E was stunned, and his eyelids twitched. So in Impermanence Fairy's eyes, the torture hall was either to punish people or to send them to the afterlife. This, Sue E smiled bitterly. Sister Impermanence Fairy, it's true that the torture hall is in charge of the law, but it's not just about fighting and killing. Merciless West, who was next to him, rubbed her forehead helplessly. I'll tell Sister Impermanence Fairy about this in the future. Sue, he said in the end. He felt that the Bawang sect was just slowly getting on the right track, so it was not a bad thing to have a stricter punishment. In the process of rising up, no one was allowed to cause any trouble in the sect. Harsh punishments would also make the sect's disciples not dare to cause trouble. Chapter 1237. Okay. Wuchang Fairy nodded. She was not stupid, and of course, she understood what Sui meant. Kid, we're all on the same side from now on. Don't call me Sister Fairy. It sounded a little weird. At this time, Merciless West glanced at Wuchang Fairy and said to Sui, What, you're not convinced? Yuchiohan raised her eyebrows and glared at Merciless West, saying, I like it when he calls me that. Do you have a problem with that? Merciless West's momentum immediately shrank. He opened his mouth but did not dare to say anything. He just smiled bitterly. He could not help but smile when he saw this. It seemed that his big brother's fear of Wuchang Fairy could not be erased in a short time. He did not know the specific situation, but he could roughly guess that this fear was more because of his big brother's guilt towards Wuchang Fairy. Actually, Big Brother has a point. Sui saw that the atmosphere was a little tense and said, Sister Fairy is already the head priest of the Bawang sect. Calling you that will cause misunderstandings. How about this? I'll call you Sister Han from now on. He looked at Yuchio Han and saw that she immediately rejected it, saying, I still like the previous title. He said again, then, how about I call you Sister Han? As he said that, he winked. Kid, you're all grown up now. You even dare to tease me? Wuchang Fairy raised her eyebrows, and a fierce look appeared in her eyes, as if she was about to hit someone. On the other side, Merciless West rubbed his forehead and felt a headache. This kid really knows how to make trouble. Sister Han sounds better. It's decided then. He quickly waved his hand and said quickly. Wuchang Fairy did not say anything in the end. She just snorted coldly and sat on the chair. He smiled. Actually, calling her Sister Han was not bad. He straightened his expression, looked at the people in the hall, and continued. Everyone has heard what I said just now. From today onwards, Sister Han will be the Bawang sect's great consecrator. In addition, the Bawang sect will temporarily appoint 2 high priests. The other one will be my big brother. Greetings, great consecrators. Everyone in the hall stood up and saluted Merciless West and Yuchio Han respectively. Even the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, Im Ming, and the other Beast Emperors had looks of reverence on their faces. They all knew that Merciless West and their master were brothers who had gone through life and death together. At this moment, Merciless West did not move from her seat. Her expression did not reveal anything, but her heart was trembling faintly. The Overlord sect has already reached this stage, and this kid, Sui, has not let us down. He truly possesses powers that surpass the mortal realm. Of course, all of this could not have been achieved without his own efforts. Merciless West, who had been idle for decades, could not help but sigh. It turned out that single-handedly developing one's own sect was such a fulfilling thing. All of this is just the beginning. The Bawang sect still has a long way to go. Not only merciless West, but Su-yi also clenched his fists and said in his heart, "The arrangements for the 6 halls have been completed. For the Heavenly Beast Hall, in addition to the Purple Elephant Emperor, the Dragon Rhino Emperor, and the Black Tortoise Emperor, there will be a hall master and several elders." Su-yi adjusted his emotions and looked at the Beast Emperors again. First, his gaze fell on the Green Emperor. Among the Beast Emperors, the Green Emperor was the strongest. The position of Hall Master belonged to him. Master, however, before Su-yi could speak, the Green Emperor stood up and bowed to Su-yi. "Master, I have a request." "Oh." Su-yi was slightly taken aback. The Green Emperor had been following him for so long. He had always been cold and obedient, never questioning his orders. He had not said anything, but the Green Emperor must have known that he would arrange for him to be the Heavenly Beast Hall Master. However, Su-yi did not know why the Green Emperor interrupted him at this time. This made him curious. He said, "Just say what you want." "Yes, Master." The Green Emperor bowed again and said, "Master, I don't want to take a position in the Heavenly Beast Hall. At least, I don't want to take a position in the Heavenly Beast Hall for the time being, be it the Hall Master or the Elders." Many people were surprised by these words. The Green Emperor's strength was obvious to all. It did not make sense that he did not want to take a position in the Heavenly Beast Hall. However, Su-yi was very calm and did not speak. He only looked at the Green Emperor and waited for him to finish. "Master, the Heavenly Beast Hall is a part of the Bawang sect. However, what I want to do the most now is not to stay in the sect and protect it." The Green Emperor followed up and said word by word, "I want to go out and open up a new world. Master, please fulfill my wish." "Open up a new world?" Su-yi raised his eyebrows. He was surprised by the Green Emperor's words. However, at the same time, he was very happy. The Green Emperor had his own ideas and did not seem to be satisfied with being the Heavenly Beast Hall Master. "Master, the two of us have the same idea. If you don't agree, we are more willing to follow you and serve you at any time." Suddenly, Yang Ming and Yi Ming stood up from their seats and stood on either side of the Green Emperor. They bowed to Su-yi and spoke in an extremely firm tone. This situation stunned many people. They did not expect the 2 Beast Emperors to stand up. This included the Spirit-Devouring Emperor, the Purple Elephant Emperor, and many other Beast Emperors. They were suddenly at a loss. Su-yi fell into a short silence. At this time, he could better understand the feelings of the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yi Ming. These 3 Beast Emperors were the first to follow him, and were also the strongest. They had been constantly on the move and did not have much time to rest. The Green Emperor was right. As long as they accepted the position of Hall Master, they would need to spend more time in the sect in the future to deal with many affairs. Therefore, they would rather follow behind Su-yi or go out on their own to carve out their own path and slow down their own progress. "Master, please fulfill my wish." Seeing that Su-yi was silent, the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yi Ming spoke at the same time. Their voices shook the entire hall. "Is that so?" Su-yi murmured softly. A smile gradually appeared on his face. He said, "All right, I agree to this. From today onwards, you don't have to follow me all the time. You can do as you wish. I won't interfere. Even if you don't do a good job, the Overlord sect won't criticize you. You just have to do what you want." Not only did he not feel unhappy, but he also felt gratified. Chapter 1238. Now that the 3 of them had stood up at the same time and wanted to make a name for themselves, Su-yi was naturally happy to see them succeed. As for the result, Su-yi did not care. If they really could not make it, they could just go back to the Sky Beast Emperor. Moreover, Su-yi believed that the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yi Ming had a certain level of ability. And thank you, Master. Hearing Su-yi's approval, the 3 Beast Emperors were overjoyed. "Master, the 3 of us will live up to your expectations and create the sharpest blade of the Bawang sect." The Green Emperor's voice was trembling, which was caused by excitement. "Good. I'll wait for the day you succeed," Su-yi said with a smile. His heart was also boiling with excitement. He did not ask the Green Emperor and the other two about the specific plan. Everything was up to the three of them to implement. What he needed to do was to quietly watch the three Beast Emperors create the sharpest blade of the Bawang sect. Interesting. They're really confident. Next to Su, Merciless West also smiled and said, "It seems that they've had this idea for a long time. Perhaps they've even discussed it in private. It's good to be so confident. I'd also like to see the final result." He could not help but nod. He was moved by the three Beast Emperors' idea. At this moment, he suddenly caught a glimpse of the short, spirit-devouring emperor, who seemed to want to say something but stopped on second thought. It seemed that he also wanted to walk behind the Green Emperor and the other two and adventure with them. However, before the Devouring Spirit Emperor could do anything, said, "Devouring Spirit Emperor, don't join them. The position of Temple Master of the Heavenly Monster Temple can only be handed to you." The Devouring Spirit Emperor smiled bitterly at first, but then his face became serious again. He said respectfully, "Yes, Master. This was Su Yi's idea." The Devouring Spirit Emperor would never disobey, although he still wanted to join the Green Emperor and the others. "Good. As for what happens in the future, it will depend on your performance." "That's right, Devouring Spirit Sovereign. I hope that the Heavenly Demon Temple will grow stronger and stronger in your hands." Su said, "Yes, Master." The Spirit-Devouring Emperor did not say anything, but his expression was extremely serious. When the time came, the Heavenly Demon Temple's Temple Master would be in charge of all the barbaric demon beasts in the Bawang sect. But now, he already had several Beast Emperors under his command. If this had happened a few months ago, the Spirit-Devouring Emperor would never have dared to imagine such a thing. Therefore, this was an honor, but at the same time, it was a heavy responsibility. Most of the arrangements for the 6 halls and 1 palace have been made. Shi Xinghua, Duan Feiguang, and Fan Yuan, who are all at the Origin Void Realm, will be the first batch of deacons of the Bawang sect. They will join the 5 halls respectively. As for the specific arrangements, you can make your own decisions. He looked at the 7 Origin Void Realm experts who had just joined the Bawang sect. These people were quite strong and needed to be arranged. "Yes, Sect Master." The 7 of them bowed respectfully. For some reason, everyone felt a little excited. This kind of feeling was something that they could not experience as itinerant cultivators in the past. In addition, Zhou Kuang, Yuan He, Sun Santong, and the others will also start as deacons. They will enter the 6 halls respectively and cooperate with the hall masters with all their might. He turned his gaze to the several Origin Emperor Realm experts in the hall. There were a total of 6 experts. They were originally from the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect and the Heavenly Spider sect. They had defected to the Bawang sect. "Yes, Sect Master." The few people called Zhou Kuang, Yuan He, and Sun Santong all said respectfully. They did not dare to disobey, but their expressions did not show any happiness. They could finally tell that the trust that these few Origin Emperor Realm deacons received was not as good as the 7 Origin Void Realm experts just now. "Don't have any resentment. You have only joined the Bawang sect for a few days. I can't completely trust you. All of this still depends on your performance. Everyone in the Bawang sect is equal. Everyone has a chance, but in the end, you have to rely on yourself to fight for your own status." He said softly. He also understood the thoughts of these people. After all, people like Zhou Kuang and the others were all elder-level existences in the second-rate Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. Now that the Bawang sect had only given them the position of deacon, and it was a deacon who was not very trusted, the 6 of them naturally could not be happy. "Sect Master, we understand." However, Zhou Kuang and the others were not confused and immediately said, "It's good that you understand." He nodded and then said, "However, I will also say the ugly words first. If anyone dares to offend me by relying on their tyrannical cultivation, I will definitely make him disappear from the Bawang sect." As he spoke, killing intent burst out. The fluctuations in the hall gave rise to a sharp intent, causing Zhou Kuang, Yuan He, Sun Santong, and the others to feel a chill down their backs. Cold sweat broke out on the soles of their feet. This subordinate does not dare. The few of them immediately spoke and hurriedly expressed their positions. When the young man said that he would disappear from the Bawang sect, he probably meant that he would disappear from this world. He did not say anything else and only grunted in acknowledgement. The arrangements are almost done. Does anyone have anything else to add? He gently paced in the hall and asked. Before the group of powerhouses could say anything, they heard a young voice that was filled with extreme dissatisfaction. Boss, everyone has a position. It's either a consecrator or a hall master. What about me? How could you forget me? Handsome Su stood on Su Yi's shoulder, his wings akimbo. His angry look was very human. Such a performance made Merciless West, Impermanence Fairy, Green Emperor, Huang Jian, and the others in the hall laugh. Handsome Su was very strong and was respected by many, but he was still just a child after all. What position does a little brat want? He glared at Handsome Su and gave him a knock on the head. It wasn't that he hadn't thought about this before. However, Handsome Su was still too young and inexperienced to take up a position in the military. Boss, you hit me again. I don't accept this. Handsome Su covered his head with one wing. His face was full of grievance and anger. Are you stupid? As the sect master's younger brother, you're still not satisfied with such a high position? Do you want to be a guardian of the heavenly beast hall or a deacon of the outer sect? He rolled his eyes. Handsome Su was speechless. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that his boss was right. As the sect master's younger brother, his position was already very high. If he took up a position, wouldn't it drag him down? Boss, I've wronged you. After thinking it through, Handsome Su suddenly apologized to Su Yi and said, I don't want to be a guardian or a deacon. I'll just be the second sect master with peace of mind. Second sect master. Everyone looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Chapter 1239. Fine, second sect master it is. Su Yi shrugged helplessly. Little Handsome Su was still young and naive. Not only was he his boss, but he was also his guardian. Looking at his happy face, he didn't know why, but he was also very satisfied. If no one is going to take over, then everyone can leave. Next, the 6 halls and 1 palace will have to speed up their actions so that the Overlord sect can get on the right track. He was the last to speak. His arrangements were quite detailed, and the embryonic form of a sect had been formed. All that was left was to perfect it step by step and solve any problems they encountered. Everyone left the hall, leaving behind Merciless West, Impermanence Fairy, Green Emperor, Yang Ming, Yin Ming, Su Yi, and Little Handsome Su. Boy, do you have any other plans? Merciless West looked at Su Yi and asked, I don't have any special plans at the moment, but I've decided to investigate the secret realm that the Ash Cloud Hall mentioned. Su Yi thought for a moment before speaking softly. Before Elder Xie and the others left, they had said that there were traces of a secret realm at the northwest edge of the Chaos Realm. However, that secret realm was very fleeting, and many experts have been able to capture its true trajectory in a short period of time and break into it. A secret realm? Merciless West was silent for a moment before asking, How many people are you going to take with you? The news of the secret realm had attracted the attention of 3 first-rate sects and 6 second-rate sections. If the Bawang sect went, they definitely couldn't bring too few people, or they would be targeted by the Big Dipper sect or the Blood Sun sect. If too few people went, there would be endless trouble and even great danger. Hearing Merciless West's question, Su Yi couldn't help but shake his head and say, The Bawang sect's matters have just been arranged, so it's not good for too many people to leave the sect. Also, I'm only going there to investigate. Even Blue Cloud Hall, 9 Stars Valley, and Blood Sun sect don't know the specifics of the situation there. It's useless even if more people go there. So, in order to avoid trouble, I don't plan to bring too many people. That would easily attract attention. Merciless West nodded. Su Yi's considerations made sense. The 6 halls and 1 palace of the Bawang sect had just been established. If the experts left the sect en masse, many things would be delayed. Furthermore, if they went there with great fanfare, they would definitely alert the enemy and be targeted by the Heavenly Dipper sect and the Blood Sun sect. In that case, it would be better for Su Yi to disguise himself as an itinerant cultivator and sneak into the vicinity to obtain first-hand information. Boss, I want to go with you. Just then, handsome Su stood on Su Yi's shoulder and said urgently, All right, I'll bring you along. However, you must listen to me. Otherwise, I won't bring you along. Su Yi smiled. Bringing handsome Su along was part of his plan. I'll definitely listen to boss. Little handsome Su nodded vigorously and said solemnly, Why don't I go with you? It'll be safer that way. Merciless West frowned slightly. He was still a little worried. Ever since he came to the Chaos Realm, Su Yi had been by his side for almost a year. Merciless West felt that he was a little like an elder, silently protecting this young man. Don't worry, big brother. I'm confident. I want to go on the journey alone because I want to train myself. I can't live under your protection forever. Moreover, with handsome Su around, even if we face any danger, it shouldn't be difficult for us to escape if we want to. Su Yi looked at Merciless West, then at the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming as he said this. This was the truest thought in his heart. Along the journey to the Chaos Realm, it was his big brother and the Beast Emperors who had been protecting him that ensured the smooth rise of the Bawang sect. Now, he wanted to train himself and work hard to improve himself. He couldn't stand behind them forever. Moreover, he had to bring handsome Su with him. This little guy was now at LV8 Demon Emperor realm. His strength was probably not much weaker than Merciless West's. With handsome Su by his side, Su Yi felt that he should be able to protect himself. Then, you must be more careful. Merciless West looked solemn as he reminded Su Yi. Su Yi nodded silently and didn't reply. Merciless West thought for a while and suddenly said, You're right. Young people need to explore more. This trip to gather information is also a good experience. If that's the case, you should bring that little girl with you. Her strength is not bad now, but she's still lacking when it comes to real battles. It's time to bring her out for some fresh air. She'll never amount to anything if she's spoiled. Su Yi was stunned when he heard this. He immediately understood that the little girl his big brother was talking about was undoubtedly Feng Qi. Feng Qi had the Calamity Qi poison soul, but for so long, she had been cultivating peacefully in the mysterious space or the Bawang sect. She had never experienced anything outside. Although she was about to reach Yuan Jin stage, Su Yi understood that Feng Qi might not even be a match for those mid-level Yuan spirit stage experts with rich experience in actual combat. Moreover, this was under the condition that she possessed the Calamity Qi and Poison Soul. It could be said that Feng Qi's combat experience was like a blank sheet of paper. That's good too. Then I'll do as you say. I'll bring Feng Qi along. Su Yi nodded and agreed. Bringing along a little girl can also increase the difficulty of your training. It'll be more effective this way. Merciless West smiled. Su Yi's trip this time was not only for him to gather information, but also for him to gain experience. This was because there were all kinds of people in the vicinity of the secret territory. Not only were there people from various powerful forces, but there were also countless rogue cultivators who would take advantage of the situation. Young man, when are you going to depart? Merciless West asked again. There's no hurry, Su Yi said. I'll stay in the sect for another day or two before we depart. At the same time, I'll bring Jihan and send her back to the Xinjiang sect. The secret territories matter was not settled yet. There was no rush to get involved. Su Yi had his own plans. After Jihan recovered, she would definitely return to the Xinjiang sect. Otherwise, Ji Tianfu would be worried about her. Once the secret territory shows signs of opening, I'll find a way to send the news back. When the time comes, if it's necessary, you'll have to bring the expert from the Bawang sect along with you. Su Yi's eyes sparkled as he said this again. Merciless West nodded. Everyone wanted the benefits in the secret territory. If the secret territory really opened, as long as there was a chance, the Bawang sect would fight for it. Of course, this all depended on the situation when the time came. All right. Chapter 1240. Okay, Sui agreed. All right. After a while, he looked at the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming and asked, "What do you three plan to do?" These three beast emperors had rejected the high-level positions in the Heavenly Beast Temple. They had their own plans and would definitely not stay in the sect. Since Master wants to find out about the secret realm, why don't we head in that direction as well? We'll split up with Master, but once we're near the secret realm, we can look out for each other in time if anything happens. The Green Emperor said. Next to him, Yang Ming added, "That's a good idea, but it's best if we don't mix in with the humans at the beginning. Otherwise, we'll be easily recognized." Sui, the Green Emperor, and the others nodded in agreement. The Overlord sect's reputation had spread far and wide, and many people had seen a few beast emperors before. If they were recognized, it would be difficult for them to hide their tracks. It's decided then. We'll split into two groups and head toward the secret realm at the same time. If everything is unpredictable, there's no need to meet. If there's any trouble or the secret realm appears, you'll meet up with us as soon as possible. In the end, Sui made the final decision. Overall, the Bawang sect's experts would split into three groups. Sui, Su Xiaoshui, and Feng Qi, would secretly approach the secret realm. The Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming would hide their tracks and interact with many savage beasts. They would also move closer to the secret realm. Finally, Merciless West and the remaining experts would stay in the sect and wait for Sui to send back news. They would then decide how many people they needed. As for how the news would be sent back, Sui was not too worried. He felt that if Elder Xie was here, he might be able to borrow the power of the Ash Cloud Hall or send a savage beast to bring the news back to the sect. Not only that, the Bawang sect could also send people to the nearest city and obtain first-hand news through the Spirit Treasures Pavilion. Anyway, be careful, Merciless West warned again. Then, she discussed some matters with Sui and the others before leaving. Sui didn't ask what the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming were planning to do. Since he had let them do as they pleased, there was no need to ask too many questions. If there was something he needed to know, the three beast emperors wouldn't hide it from him. Sui found Feng Qi, and told her about his plans to go out for training. He made it clear that he wanted to bring her along. When Feng Qi heard this, she did not hesitate at all and readily agreed. This young girl's temperament had undergone a huge change from before. She no longer appeared as delicate and weak as before. Instead, she had become more and more confident. However, Sui could tell that Feng Qi, who had never experienced anything, was not strong enough no matter how confident she was. At the very least, he needed to see blood on his hands before he could truly grow. In this world, there was no one who could keep their hands clean. Not to mention, this was the Chaos region. I need to bid farewell to my lord. When Sui told her the time of departure, the first person Feng Qi thought of was Merciless West. However, for some reason, this young girl seemed to be oblivious to Merciless West's intentions. She still didn't take the initiative to bring up the matter of becoming his disciple and continued to address him as her lord. Sui felt that it was necessary to remind her in the future. It was not good for his elder brother to ask for such things himself. Most importantly, he felt that Feng Qi knew what his elder brother meant but pretended not to know. Prepare well. We will leave in the morning the day after tomorrow, Sui said and left. Su Xiaoshui had already flown away, and no one knew where he went. As for Sui, he went to look for Jihanua. When Jihanua knew that they were about to return to the Xinjian sect, her eyes reddened again. She and her father had experienced a life and death separation. A few days had passed since Elder Xie, Elder Zhong, Elder Tang, and the others left the Bawang sect. With the speed of these people, they had already returned to their respective sects by now. 9 Stars Valley. In a deep valley, it was extremely quiet. Lush green covered the bottom of one's eyes, and one could hear the crisp chirping of birds. The deep valley looked extremely peaceful. However, if there was someone with a high cultivation base here, it would not be difficult to notice that on the layers of rugged mountain rocks and between the dense ancient trees, there was a faint glimmer of starlight. Within the starlight, there was a strange and mysterious power that made people cautious and fearful for no reason. At this moment, there was an open area in the deep valley that was surrounded by trees. In this open area, a middle-aged man with a jade-like face sat on a stone bench. On the stone table in front of him, there was a chessboard carved with 9 vertical lines and 9 horizontal lines. At the intersection of the lines on the chessboard, there seemed to be black stars embellished with a power that could devour one's soul. With just a glance, it was enough to make one's soul tremble. On the surface of the chessboard, there were streams of starlight that flowed and bloomed little by little. It was incomparably magnificent. Black and white chess pieces covered half of the chessboard. On the other side of the stone table, an old man in his 50s who was holding a black chess piece thought for a moment and gently placed a chess piece. Valley Master, Elder Tang is back. Suddenly, as a figure appeared not far away, such a voice entered the ears of the middle-aged man and the old man in his 50s. The middle-aged man did not speak. He weighed a white chess piece next to his hand and thought for a long time before he placed the chess piece in his hand. Then he said, "Ask Elder Tang to come and see me." Yes. The person who had just spoken took the order and left. Valley Master, Tang Wang has disregarded your order. He has gone overboard this time. Opposite the middle-aged man, the old man placed another chess piece and said indifferently. The middle-aged man's black hair was neatly combed to the back of his head. He had a gentle and scholarly temperament. As he placed the chess piece, he said, "Elder Tang only helps Su Yi because he loves talents. However, his behavior is indeed too much." As he spoke, the middle-aged man, who was the Valley Master of the 9-Star Valley, did not seem to care at all. He had a gentle and refined temperament. However, the old man opposite him knew that if the Valley Master said the word too much, it meant that in the Valley Master's heart, Elder Tang had begun to cross some of the bottom lines. There are many suspicious points about Su Yi. I'm afraid that the Blue Cloud Hall and the Blood Sun sect are also very interested in him. Originally, this person was already in the hands of our 9-Star Valley. I didn't expect that we would return empty-handed in the end. What a pity. I'm afraid that it will be even more difficult to have such an opportunity next time. The old man said as he continued to place his chess piece. It's hard to say whether it's difficult or not. I'm afraid that it will depend on the methods of each player. Chapter 1241. As the 9-Star Valley Master spoke, he placed a piece on the chessboard with his right hand. Suddenly, the entire chessboard was filled with dazzling starlight, illuminating their faces. It was clear that it was daytime, but the surroundings were filled with dazzling starlight. It was bright and colorful. The old man in his 50s, who was called Elder Nya, looked down. After the Valley Master placed that piece, the situation on the chessboard had changed drastically. From the previous equilibrium, it was now filled with murderous intent. All the black pieces were locked down, and none of them could escape from the encirclement of the white pieces. At this moment, Elder Nier replayed the game in his mind and realized that the Valley Master had been preparing this final killing move since a long time ago. However, the killing intent had been concealed earlier, so he did not notice it at all. The Valley Master's chess skills are unparalleled in the world. I admit defeat wholeheartedly. Elder Nya threw a black piece in his hand and admitted defeat. The 9-Star Valley Master smiled gently and did not say anything. Instead, he looked to the side. With a swoosh, an old figure quickly swept over and stood beside the chessboard. "Greetings, Valley Master." The person who came was Elder Tang Wang. He bowed to the middle-aged man and then nodded slightly at Elder Nya. "Elder Tang, you're finally willing to come back." The 9-Star Valley Master, whose real name was Chun Yao, looked at Elder Tang and smiled softly. "Valley Master, this matter is all my fault. I'll accept any punishment." Tang Wang cupped his hands and said to the middle-aged man. Back then, he had stopped Tao Yuanda and Dong Chongqing from kidnapping Su Yi. After the matter was over, he had stayed in the Bawang sect for a month and only returned to the 9-Star Valley today. In Tang Wang's heart, even if the Valley Master blamed him, it was reasonable. I sent Elder Tao and Elder Dong to bring Su Yi back, not to hurt him wholeheartedly. If that young man is willing, the Nine-Star Valley can be on good terms with him and form a good relationship with him, Chun Yao said. However, Tang Wang did not comment on this. He only said, that young man's future achievements will definitely be extraordinary. It's not a bad thing for me to help him. However, if Valley Master is dissatisfied, I, Tang Wang, will bear all the blame. The scene fell into silence. Chun Yao didn't speak, but Elder Nye sat on the stone bench without saying a word. His eyes were focused on his nose, and his nose was focused on his heart, as if he had turned a deaf ear to the conversation between the two. However, the three of them knew in their hearts that whether it was their own words or those of others, whether it was true or false, they all had a balance in their hearts. After a long while, Chun Yao suddenly smiled and said, Elder Tang is overthinking things. You are an elder of my Nine Stars Valley. Naturally, you can make some decisions in the Nine Stars Valley. Although I am the Valley Master, of course I will listen to your opinion. What Elder Tang did outside represented the will of the Nine Stars Valley. Therefore, there was absolutely no need to talk about punishment. However, I hope that when Elder Tang is outside in the future, you will consider my thoughts more and not act willfully. Hearing these words, Tang Wang remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking. However, his brows were slightly furrowed, and Chun Yao stared straight at him. After a long while, Tang Wang said again, Thank you for not punishing me, Valley Master. However, I still feel that there is no need for the Nine Stars Valley to do anything to that young man. As long as we help him, the disadvantages will outweigh the benefits in the future. Elder Tang. Chun Yao's voice unconsciously became louder, interrupting Tang Wang's words. He said, I already know what Elder Tang means, and I will consider your opinion. However, Elder Tang doesn't need to worry too much about the final decision. It's better for the Nine Stars Valley to act in a unified manner. If there are different actions, won't we be laughed at by the other sex? Therefore, in the future, just act according to my orders. The Nine Stars Valley Master's voice was still not loud, but it was obviously much colder than before. Tang Wang did not speak again, but his brows were furrowed. He knew the Valley Master's character too well and knew how he handled things. His rebuttal would be useless. However, a sudden anger rose in his heart. He said in a low voice, Valley Master, please don't worry. Even if I were to act in the future, I will not act in the name of the Nine Stars Valley. I will not make things difficult for the other members of the Nine Stars Valley and the Valley Master. Elder Tang, Chun Yao shouted and reiterated, I hope you don't forget your identity. Every action you take represents the Nine Stars Valley. How can it have nothing to do with the other members of the Nine Stars Valley and me? Please think twice about what you do in the future. This time, Tang Wang did not continue the conversation. Instead, he said, If the Valley Master does not punish me for this matter, I will take my leave. His voice was still in his mouth when his body had already turned around. He strode out and rushed into the forest. Traces of a secret realm have appeared at the edge of the Chaos region. Elder Tang must have heard about this. Many people have already gone to the Nine Stars Valley. Elder Tang, you should hurry over. The Nine Stars Valley Master's voice drifted out. However, the old figure had already disappeared into the lush green forest. No one knew if he had heard it or not. Valley Master, Tang Wang is still as stubborn as before. Elder Nye, who was opposite Chun Yao, opened his eyes and spoke again after Tang Wang left. Elder Tang is good in other aspects, but he is a little stubborn. However, it is better for the Nine Stars Valley to act in a unified manner. Otherwise, how can we establish ourselves in the Chaos region? The Nine Stars Valley Master said. Elder Nye nodded. They all knew that Tang Wang was stubborn and had caused many conflicts in the valley in the past. However, there were big and small conflicts. Fortunately, they did not cross any bottom line and could only be considered as conflicts. Just like this time, Tao Yuanda and Dong Chongqing had already captured Su Yi, but Tang Wang insisted on letting him go. This matter was not a big deal, but to a certain extent, it had already affected the Nine Stars Valley Master's dignity. Valley Master, Su, you should still be in the Bawang sect. Why don't I go and bring him back? Elder Nye said. Elder Tang had returned to the Nine Stars Valley. The people from the Blue Cloud Hall should have also left the Bawang sect. If they made a move now, they would have a high chance of capturing Su Yi. Chen Yao suddenly chuckled and said, You underestimate that young man and the people around him. With the Nine Stars Valley and the Blood Sun sect eyeing them covetously, do you really think the Bawang sect would not be prepared? Elder Nye was silent for a moment and could not help but nod. Valley Master is right. I have not thought it through. All the rumors about Su Yi indicated that this young man was not an ordinary person. Chapter 1242. Previously, the Nine Stars Valley had already made a move. In addition, the people of the Blood Sun sect were even more brazen and plotting against him. In this way, the Bawang sect would definitely be prepared to deal with it. It would definitely be very difficult for the Nine Stars Valley to capture him at this time. If things went wrong, the Nine Stars Valley might suffer heavy losses. One had to know that the second-rate force, the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, was destroyed because of the Bawang sect. The Nine Stars Valley was many times stronger than the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. However, they could not go through so much trouble. It was not worth it for any expert to die. There will always be opportunities. That Su Yi is talented and his methods are domineering. However, from what I've heard, that youth is not a well-behaved person. As long as he doesn't hide in the Bawang sect, we will have plenty of opportunities to make a move. There's no rush. The Nine Stars Valley Master, Chen Yao, sat on the stone bench and reached out to pick up the white chess pieces on the chessboard before placing them into the chess bowl. Elder Nye observed for a moment and discovered that Chen Yao's order of collecting the chess pieces was extremely regular. It was exactly the opposite of the order of his placing the chess pieces. There was not a single mistake. Watching the white chess pieces being taken away one by one, Elder Nye said softly, Tang Wang's status in the Nine Stars Valley is quite high. It's reasonable for people like Tao Yuanda, Dong Chongqing, and the others to respect and fear him. So, next time, why don't you let me take action and bring Su Yi back to the valley? It wouldn't be easy to immediately head to the Overlord sect to capture Su Yi. However, if Su Yi were to appear elsewhere, he would lose the protection of the illusory spirit world. Even if Shi Wuqing had the protection of a few powerful beast emperors, he wouldn't be able to stop the Nine Stars Valley. In addition, Elder Nye and Elder Tang's cultivation were on par with each other, and their status was similar. There was no need to give Tang Wang too much face. Of course, it would be even better if they could not capture that youth in front of Tang Wang. The Nine Stars Valley Master did not answer Elder Nye's question. After placing the last white chess piece into the bowl, he placed his hands on his knees and stared calmly at the chessboard. He said, Elder Tao Yuanda and Elder Dong Chongqing have gone to investigate the secret realm. After they are done there and return to the valley, send them to guard the Thunder Sealing Valley for 100 years. As soon as these words came out, Elder Nye's sitting figure suddenly trembled, and a look of horror appeared on his face. Valley Master, this punishment is a little, his voice suddenly rose as he screamed, but Chen Yao waved his hand to stop him. This matter is settled. There is no need for further discussion, said the Nine-Star Valley Master. Go. Elder Nye still wanted to say something, but his eyes met Chen Yao's. The middle-aged man's eyes sparkled like the most dazzling stars in the night sky. In an instant, Elder Nye felt as if his body had been struck by lightning. He unconsciously swallowed the words he wanted to say. However, his heart was like a raging sea that was being overturned and stormy waves were surging. Thunder Sealing Valley was the most important place in the Nine Stars Valley. The strongest ancestors in the Nine Stars Valley were all in seclusion in Thunder Sealing Valley and did not come out for many years. In Thunder Sealing Valley, there were often strong cultivators guarding it. They would activate the power of the stars in their bodies from time to help the ancestors cultivate. This process was not as simple as consuming vitality. An ordinary origin ancestor would find it difficult to make any progress in cultivation after guarding it for 10 years. After guarding it for 20 years, one's vitality would begin to deplete and one's cultivation would gradually decline. Under normal circumstances, only the higher-ups or disciples of the Nine Stars Valley who had committed serious crimes would be sent to Thunder Ceiling Valley to guard it. Under normal circumstances, they would be released after guarding it for 10 to 20 years. Although their cultivation would not improve during this period, it would not affect their foundation too much. They could still continue to cultivate and improve. Some people had guarded it for more than 10 years. They were always tense and consumed a lot of vitality. After they came out, their strength would suddenly surge. Therefore, if the other strong cultivators in the valley wanted to cultivate in seclusion, they would often choose to enter Thunder Ceiling Valley. However, they would not stay there for too long. Only then could the seclusion be truly effective. Elder Nya, are you going to do your own things, or do you want to play another game with me? After a while, Chun Yao asked Elder Nya with a slight smile on his face, looking at him with a carefree expression. I still have some trivial matters to attend to. I'll play chess with you next time. Elder Nya sorted out his emotions, stood up from the stone bench, and cupped his fists at Chun Yao. All right. Chun Yao nodded. I'll take my leave. Elder Nya cupped his fists and walked in a direction. Even after he entered the dense forest, Elder Nya still could not calm down. The two elders, Tao Yuanda and Dong Chongqing, had a high status in the Nine Stars Valley. However, they had been stopped by Tang Wang and had probably violated the Valley Master's taboo. However, the punishment of guarding it for 100 years was really too heavy. Sigh. Elder Nya let out a soft sigh and left without looking back, disappearing from the forest. In the open area in the middle of the forest, the Nine Stars Valley Master, Chun Yao, picked up a black chess piece on the chessboard. There was no change in his gentle and elegant face. However, when he rubbed his two fingers together, the black chess piece in his hand turned into a wisp of smoke and slowly dissipated. No square root, Bawang sect. A huge boulder that was 10 feet tall stood there, and the words Overlord Sect were written on it. The handwriting was strong, and it exuded a domineering aura. Beside the boulder stood a group of figures. Kid, you must be careful. If you're exposed, it's better to hide temporarily or send a message back as soon as possible. Merciless West stood in front of the crowd and said to Sui, Don't worry, big brother. I know what I'm doing. Sui faced the sect with Ji Hanoa and Feng Qi beside him. There was a little bird perched on his shoulder. Beside him, the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming stood quietly. On the opposite side, behind Merciless West, the Devouring Spirit Emperor, Purple Elephant Emperor, Huang Jian, Wang Zhengquan, and the others were all looking at him. Impermanence Fairy, Yu Chiohan, was also present. The three of you must be careful as well. If you encounter any obstacles, just send a message back. The Bawang sect will support you at any time. Merciless West looked at the Green Emperor and the others and reminded them. Understood. The three Beast Emperors all nodded with serious expressions. However, for some reason, the Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and the other two all carried an indelible high-spirited aura. Looks like you're still full of confidence for this trip. Sui saw this and couldn't help but laugh. Master, don't laugh at us. The three of us can't guarantee that we'll make a name for ourselves outside, but we'll definitely work hard to bring glory to the Bawang sect. A smile appeared on Yin Ming's beautiful face as her red lips parted slightly. All right, it's getting late. Let's go. Sui didn't say anything else. With a gentle wave of his hand, he led Ji Hanoa, Feng Qi and little handsome Sui into the distance. Goodbye, Master. Feng Qi turned around and waved goodbye to Merciless West. Ji Hanoa also waved to everyone. Kid, you must be careful. Come back soon, sect leader. Chapter 1243. Let's go too. The Green Emperor and the other two didn't delay and flew up. Be careful. Come back early. Everyone waved goodbye and watched as the 6 figures gradually disappeared from sight. Sui, Handsome Sui, Ji Hanoa, and Feng Qi formed a team. The Green Emperor, Yang Ming, and Yin Ming went in different directions. Handsome, normal demons can transform into human form after reaching the Demon Emperor realm. When will you be able to do that? It's still a little eye-catching now. It's not very convenient. Sui asked. The four of them walked through the forest instead of flying in the sky. Boss, I'm not a normal demon. Little handsome Su stood on Su Yi's shoulder. Even though they were moving at high speed, his body didn't move at all. He was as steady as a rock. I know you're not normal, but you'll definitely be able to transform into human form. When will you be able to do it? Don't you know? Su Yi rolled his eyes. Well, handsome Su was immediately stunned. I can't say for sure. I don't have much information about my awakening yet, but I guess I might be able to do it when I reach the Demon Grandmaster realm. He was very uncertain, but Su Yi was very confused. It was an ironclad rule that demon emperors could transform into human form. All demon emperors could do it. However, handsome Su was different. It could only be attributed to his phoenix body. It seemed that demons with powerful bloodlines not only had different heavenly tribulations, but they were also greatly restricted in transforming into human form. Is that so? Su Yi smacked his lips and said, So, handsome, you can't blame me. When we reach a crowded place, you won't be able to show your face. You're too famous now. People will recognize you easily. Hearing this, handsome Su immediately realized something. If they went to a crowded place, he would probably be forced into Su Yi's arms again and couldn't be seen. In fact, handsome Su was also very desperate. He also wanted to transform into human form. However, during the battle at the mine, he had killed an Origin ancestor powerhouse with his final strike. The onlookers must have spread the news of that scene. In this way, once he appeared in the outside world, even if Su Yi had the art of disguise, he would definitely be seen through. Thinking of this, handsome Su's face immediately turned bitter. At the side, Ji Hanua and Feng Qi couldn't help but cover their mouths and snicker. I'll think of a way later. Maybe I can't change little handsome's appearance, but there's a chance to change his characteristics and temperament. That way, he won't be afraid of being recognized. Feng Qi said. Really? Handsome Su's eyes lit up. Su Yi also looked at the girl beside him and was surprised. He didn't know that Feng Qi had such an ability. I don't know if it will work or not. It's just an idea. It depends on the situation. However, this method can only fool the eyes of ordinary people. Once you meet a true expert, you won't be able to hide it. Feng Qi said with a chuckle. Fine, fine, fine. As long as you don't have to hide all the time. Handsome Su was overjoyed. He landed on Feng Qi's shoulder and nodded his little head nonstop. I'll try my best, Feng Qi said. Hearing her words, Su Yi was also very curious. Feng Qi had the Calamity Qi Poison Soul, which was a rare talent. Perhaps she really had some special means. Let's find a place to try it later, Su Yi said. If he could change handsome Su's temperament and make him look very different from the rumors, he would be very happy. The four of them continued to travel through the forest while chatting with each other. They were heading towards the extreme northwest of the Chaos Zone. It was very far from the Bawang sect. If they rushed there at full speed, it would take a lot of time. However, Su Yi was not in a hurry. It should not be easy for a new secret realm to be opened. Otherwise, with the means of the three first-rate forces, they would have been able to track it down by now. Besides, Su Yi also sent Ji Hanua back to the Xinjian sect. After leaving the Xinjian sect, it was time for them to embark on their journey. Su Yi, I want to go with you. Ji Hanua looked at Su Yi and said softly, You want to go too? Su Yi was slightly stunned. However, he did not rush to agree or reject. Instead, he said, Let's see what sect leader Ji has to say when we meet him. If he agrees, and you really want to go, I'll bring you along. Okay. Ji Hanua nodded vigorously. She was very satisfied with Su Yi's answer. Her mood could not help but improve. Just as the few of them were rushing, a young man's figure was shuttling through the barbaric demon forest at an extremely fast speed. Roar! The loud roars of beasts rose and fell one after another. A fishy smell filled the forest. While the young man was moving forward, he suddenly stopped and stood on the spot. His eyes were like that of an eagle's, and they shone with an extremely sharp light. From the corner of his eyes, he saw a group of snow-white figures flying towards him from the sky. These figures were all powerful, barbaric demon beasts. Heavenly frost winged wolves, flying-type barbaric demon beasts. There are so many of them. The young man was dressed in black. His body was straight, and his eyes were like lightning. However, his black clothes were twisted together and mottled like dried bloodstains. However, his clothes were not damaged, and there was only a small tear on his back. Looking at the large group of barbaric demon beasts flying towards him, the young man had no intention of dodging. Roar! In the sky, those barbaric demon beasts saw the young man in black robes below them. They could not help but let out a series of low growls and charged towards him even faster. These barbaric demon beasts were snow-white and looked like barbaric wolves. However, they had a pair of wings on their back. They could spread their wings and fly at an extremely fast speed. Although they could not be compared to those pure, flying-type barbaric demon beasts, they were not to be underestimated. As expected of the barbaric demon forest, I have already met dozens of them along the way. Junior Marshal Uncle seemed to have passed through this place a few times. With my current strength, it should be easier for me to pass through this place and reach the Chaos region. Looking at the group of snow-white heavenly frost-winged wolves, there were actually 17 to 18 of them. As he got closer, an icy aura rushed towards him. The leader of the pack, the Wolf King, should have reached the Demon True realm. Since you guys are here to die, then I won't hold back. The young man's eyes narrowed. He retracted his aura and stood there without moving. He quietly waited for the heavenly frost-winged wolves to charge towards him. When he was surrounded by the group of barbaric demon beasts, the young man suddenly stomped his foot on the ground. Boom! A huge earthquake occurred in the surrounding forest, and the trees were trembling nonstop. Chapter 1244. Roar! As the black energy surged, the icy winged wolves howled. They could feel the destructive aura. This young man was so powerful that none of the savage beasts expected him to be so strong. Kill! At the same time, the young man let out a deep roar. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. He stomped his feet on the ground and dashed out. With a pointed finger, a black light shot out and hit the head of an icy winged wolf in front of him. Bang! A muffled explosion sounded. The demon spirit realm icy winged wolf didn't even have time to react before its head was pierced. Blood splattered everywhere. This scene ignited the bloodlust of all the savage beasts. Every icy winged wolf's eyes turned red. Roar! Following the roar of a huge white wolf at the back of the pack, dozens of icy winged wolves charged out at the same time. Swish! Every heavenly frost winged wolf's body emitted a surging, icy aura. Snowflakes danced in the surrounding space, and a dense white fog surged and spread out rapidly, enveloping the young man in the middle. You're courting death. The young man's eyes were cold. His body was like a phantom as he shuttled through the pack of wolves. Swish! The young man moved his hands and dodged the attacks of several icy winged wolves. Then, he pointed his finger again. PFFF. Another icy winged wolf fell to the ground, bleeding profusely. But soon, the blood on the ground was frozen by the boundless icy aura. Under the attack of the terrifying icy aura, a layer of white frost formed on the young man's body. But all of this couldn't slow him down at all. He continued to move around and pointed his finger again. Rays of light shot out and pierced through the bodies of the icy winged wolves again and again. Every single time, it was a fatal strike. In just a few breaths of time, 5 to 6 Empyrean frost-winged wolves had died. Outside the pack of wolves, the huge white wolf's eyes were dark. Seeing what was happening, it wanted to pounce forward and kill the young man. An icy beam of light shot out from its mouth, carrying with it the power to split mountains. It tore through space and arrived before the young man in an instant. However, it only saw that the human youth did not dodge. Instead, he struck out with his palm and fiercely collided with the icy light pillar. Boom! The light beam shattered, and fist-sized ice crystals scattered in all directions, like a mass of rocks piercing through the air. The surrounding icy winged wolves couldn't dodge in time and were grazed by the ice crystals, sustaining serious injuries. However, there wasn't even a trace of blood on the young man's fist. Such a scene caused the wolves to roar again and again, but they couldn't get close to the human. The leader of the pack was even more surprised. He knew that he had provoked a powerful human youth this time. Oh! Another howl rang out, and the leader of the wolves immediately retreated, fleeing into the distance. The remaining wolves did not dare to stay any longer. One by one, they turned around and fled. Every icy winged wolf flapped their wings and flew up into the sky. Puff, puff, puff. However, in this short period of time, another 3 glacial winged wolves were killed. The young man's figure stopped, and his eyes were deep as he looked at the remaining 10-plus snow-white wolves that fled. The scarlet-red blood on his robe had already frozen. Only thinking of fleeing now? It's too late. Offending me, Situ Muyang, you can only consider yourselves unlucky. The black-clothed young man stomped on the ground. Then his figure rose into the air and chased after the pack of wolves. He was actually flying. This was an ability that only an Origin Void stage expert possessed. Most importantly, this young man's speed was even swifter than the icy winged wolves that were born with wings. When the pack of snow-white wolves ahead sensed all this, they couldn't help but howl. They were flustered, and all of them pushed their speed to the limit. Their wings were about to break from flapping. However, all of this was futile. The young man quickly closed in, and not long after, he finally caught up with the last icy winged wolf. A black earth attribute light was shot out by him, and it turned into a sharp spear. In an instant, it pierced through the icy winged wolf in midair. Blood splattered everywhere, and the wolf's corpse fell from the sky, smashing a tree branch. Oh, the wolves were shocked, but there was nothing they could do. They could only focus on running for their lives. For a moment, a ferocious scene appeared in the sky. A human young man was flying in the air, and he was moving quickly in the sky. In front of him, close to 10 barbaric demon beasts were fleeing for their lives, but they were unable to shake off the young man. Moreover, as the young man got closer, the icy winged wolves were killed one after another. Such a scene was witnessed by many barbaric demon beasts in the forest. They couldn't help but shiver and hide. An Origin Void stage existence might not be able to move unhindered in the barbaric demon forest, but compared to most barbaric demon beasts, they were existences that couldn't be provoked. New chapter, Section J, upper Y /HMN. Such a young man, who would have thought that he was not even 17 years old? It was really shocking. If Su-E was here, his jaw would definitely drop, because he was very familiar with this young man. He was an old acquaintance who had a good relationship with him, the son of the Xinjiang Gate's gate master, Situ Muyang. After obtaining Situ Liuyun's approval, Situ Muyang finally set off on his journey. He left the Xinjiang Gate and entered the barbaric demon forest. He wanted to go to the Chaos region to look for Su-E. Originally, the Xinjiang Gate wanted to send experts to go with him, but they were rejected by Situ Muyang. Other than that, Jianwuk, Ryugan River, Zhongqing, and the others also wanted to go with him when they heard the news. However, they were all glared at by the elders of the Xinjiang Gate. The reason used by the elders was very simple. Situ Muyang has already reached the Origin Void Realm. Even Naren Ryu of the Sacred Mountain is far inferior to such talent. It's not impossible for you to go to the Chaos region. If you break through to the Origin Void Realm now, I'll let you go immediately. Such words caused all the disciples who wanted to go to the Chaos region to shrink their necks. What kind of joke was this? All of them had good talent, and the Origin Void Realm was just around the corner. However, they were unable to break through immediately. Jianwuk was almost there, but he was still a bit lacking. Situ Muyang was a freak, just like Su-E. He brought everyone a blow. However, at the same time, the disciples of the Xinjiang Gate also secretly vowed to cultivate diligently. They cannot be left too far behind by these two freaks. Situ Muyang can't even compare to Naren Ryu. I really don't know how he cultivates. Although the gate master is powerful, when he was young, his talent shouldn't be so freakish, right? Such questions filled the hearts of many people in the Xinjiang Gate. However, they cannot find an answer. Chapter 1245. Since it was not inherited from Situ Muyang, then it was highly possible that it was because of Situ Muyang's mother. Many elders in Xinjiang Gate did not know what kind of wife Sita Luyin had married over 10 years ago. Although there were a few people who vaguely knew that the woman had a powerful background, but as for her real background, perhaps only the most respected people in Xinjiang Gate knew. Swish, swish, numerous figures flashed across the sky as fast as lightning. Chi-chi, as Situ Muyang chased after them, the icy winged wolves were killed by him one by one, and all of them were smashed into the mountain below. Not long after, other than the huge alpha wolf, the rest of the icy winged wolves were all killed. You won't be able to escape. These words came out from Situ Muyang's mouth. Yuan Qi surged out from his body and filled the air around him. In a split second, it formed a black shadow of a mountain peak. This mountain peak shadow was strangely majestic. It was dozens of feet tall, and it was shot out by him with a wave of his hand. Rumble, the illusory mountain moved in the air and suppressed the wolf with an unstoppable force. Awoo, the alpha wolf roared. Waves of biting cold air surged and froze the space. It used all its strength to resist the attack. However, the mountain peak shadow emitted an extremely heavy aura as it crazily crushed down. Ka-ka! The solid ice cracked and exploded, breaking apart inch by inch. Finally, the mountain peak shadow smashed down with a boom and slammed the wolf onto a hill below. A huge crater appeared on the ground. The mountain rocks turned into fine powder, and broken wood flew everywhere. A pool of blood mixed in the dust. The wolf's flesh exploded, and it could not be more dead. It's a pity that it's not a demon void realm. It doesn't even have a demon core. Sita Muyang landed and glanced at the battlefield. His face was filled with regret. Under the circulation of his Yuan Qi, the frost on his body also melted and evaporated into mist. He did not stay here for long. After a moment, he plunged into the forest without flying. This was the barbaric demon forest. Everything had to be done in a low-key manner. This was what Sita Muyang had concluded. With his cultivation, it would not be too difficult for him to cross this place and reach the Chaos Realm. However, if he swaggered through the streets, he would definitely die easily. Everyone knew that the barbarian demon forest was barren and lacked everything except for barbarian demon beasts. Especially in this place, there were many powerful savage beasts. Sita Muyang had outstanding talent, but if he encountered a powerful monster void realm, or even a monster emperor realm, he would only die. Chaos Realm, Junior Martial Uncle, I'm here. Muttering softly, Sita Muyang continued on his journey towards the barbaric demon forest. After passing through there, they would arrive at the Chaos region. The barbaric demon forest was also where the greatest danger lay. The most prosperous place in the central state was the Sacred Mountain. The spirit energy here was dense, and between the layers of mountains, clusters of mist coiled around like mist. The mountain peaks were verdant and dark green, jade flowers bloomed, and spirit butterflies fluttered about, causing it to seem like a paradise on earth. On a towering mountain peak, a young man with long hair that flowed down like a waterfall walked out from an expanse of hazy mist, and then he stood silently in the sky with one hand behind his back. When one looked over, one could see his slender figure, handsome appearance, and appearance that was like jade. The young man looked to be less than 30 years old, yet his entire body contained a unique bearing, and he was like a son of the heavens that emanated charm and had an ethereal bearing. Holy son, you've left your closed-door cultivation. Not long after the young man walked out, an old man's figure flashed over quickly to stand behind the young man and speak respectfully. Yes, the young man replied indifferently and didn't say anything further. Holy son, you've broken through to the 9th level of the Origin Void stage. After a short moment, The old man's figure shook as he raised his head to look at the young man before him, and his face went ghastly pale and was filled with astonishment. "Yes, I've been in closed-door cultivation for over a year and have just broken through to the 9th level of the Origin Void stage." The young man's expression remained unchanged when he heard this, and he only nodded lightly. "That's great. Congratulations, Holy Son. You're not far from the Origin Monarch stage." The old man turned from shock to excitement, and he bowed once more as he spoke with a trembling voice. However, the young man only smiled and said, "Elder Emo, I wonder if any major events have occurred in the Holy Mountain during this past year? Tell me about it." The young man still had a carefree appearance as he descended from midair to stand before the old man. Major events. When this was mentioned, the old man called Elder Mo's expression focused, and he hesitated for a moment before laughing bitterly and saying, "A major event has indeed occurred. It's a major event that shook the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean." "Oh." The young man's interest was instantly aroused, and he asked in a light voice, "Elder Emo, don't keep me in suspense. Tell me roughly." Elder Emo organized his thoughts for a moment, and then he said slowly, "I have to start from the St. Martial Conference last year. At that time, the Holy Sun was in closed-door cultivation, and the 9th Holy Sun represented the Holy Mountain to participate in the St. Martial Conference. However, he encountered a young man and returned in defeat." "Narenryu?" "Returned in defeat." The young man was obviously startled, as if he suspected that he had heard wrongly. He asked curiously, "The age limit of the St. Martial Conference is 25 years old and below. Although Narenryu is not yet 20 years old, it's extremely difficult to find someone in the Central Continent who can match him. Moreover, Elder Emo just said that the person who defeated him was a young man." "That's right. This young man is called Su-Yi, and he represents the Bawang sect. However, this Bawang sect is just a fabrication. He was originally a disciple of the Shunjin Gate. In fact, Su-Yi should have been a disciple of the Holy Mountain." Elder Emo swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said so. For some reason, when he mentioned Su-Yi's name, there was endless shock in his heart, and he could not calm down. Should have been a disciple of the Holy Mountain? This makes me more and more curious. "Elder Emo, please continue." This time, the young man was even more interested, and he indicated for the old man to continue. "That Su-Yi can be said to be a genius, and he defeated the 9th Holy Sun." Elder Emo organized his thoughts and then told everything about Su-Yi to the young man in front of him. From the fierce battle at the beginning of the St. Martial Conference, to the terrifying battle in the St. Martial Secret World, to the experts of the Holy Mountain making a move, and then Su-Yi, Merciless West, Su-Chun, Yin-Lin, and Little Marshal Su becoming sworn brothers under the siege of the Holy Mountain, and finally broke through the sky and escaped. There were also various news from the Chaos Realm that the young man had really established a Bawang sect and, at the same time, made a name for himself in the Alliance Conference. Elder Mo didn't leave out any details as he roughly recounted everything to the young man, to the point that the young man's mouth felt dry. The more he talked about these past events, the more amazed the old man's face was. Chapter 1246. According to the news from the Chaos region, after the Alliance Conference, a second-rate force called the Heavenly Dipper Sect made a move to kill Su-Yi. However, they did not expect that the Bawang sect would actually set up a powerful illusory spirit world and trap and kill more than 10 Heavenly Dipper Sect's Origin Emperor Realm experts. Even the half-step Origin Ancestor Realm Sect Master was seriously injured and returned in defeat. The person who set up this illusory spirit world was Su-Yi's sworn elder brother, Merciless West. After that, the Bawang sect rose even faster and caused a huge commotion in the Chaos region. They destroyed several third-rate sects in a row and truly became a powerful force. Not long ago, the Bawang sect suddenly made a move and destroyed a third-rate force called the Green Sanctuary Sect. Behind the Green Sanctuary Sect was a second-rate force called the Jade Tripod Sect. What was unexpected was that Su-yi led his men to secretly set up another illusory spirit world near the Jade Tripod sect. He used some unknown method to lure the Jade Tripod sect's Origin Emperor Realm experts in and killed them one by one. He killed dozens of Origin Emperor Realm experts in a row. After that, the two Origin Ancestor Realm experts of the Jade Tripod sect made a move and vowed to destroy the Bawang sect. However, when they went, they encountered the Bawang sect's strong resistance. First, they used the illusory spirit world to trap and injure the two of them. Then, Su-yi took out hundreds of powerful soul-controlling killing talismans and seriously injured the two Origin Ancestor Realm experts. Originally, the Bawang sect would not be able to escape the fate of destruction. After all, they were all seriously injured. However, who would have thought that the little bird beside Su-yi would erupt with the power of a phoenix and kill a Origin Ancestor Realm expert? Su-yi himself used a strange method to devour the energy of the Origin Stones in the mine, and his strength instantly soared. Then, he used an unimaginable martial technique to kill another seriously injured Origin Ancestor Realm expert. After that, the Blood Sun sect and the 9-Star Valley of the three first-rate forces made a move one after another, wanting to take Su-yi away. However, under the protection of the Blue Cloud Hall, the plans of these two sects fell through. In this way, the Bawang sect had truly survived the crisis. However, that second-rate force, the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect, was destroyed just like that. All its territory and wealth were swept away by someone. Elder Hiroshi said a lot in one breath. His old face was full of horror. Not only him, but the young man was also in a daze for a long time after hearing this. That young man, Su-yi, was really too terrifying. Although many of them were just rumors, with the Holy Mountains information channels, all of them were absolutely credible. That Su-yi is at the 6th level of the Origin Void stage. A 6th level Origin Void stage martial artist below the age of 18. Truly sensational. The young man muttered. His handsome face was filled with disbelief. He couldn't help but think of himself. What was his cultivation level when he was 18? The young man clearly remembered that he was still in the Yuanjin stage at that time. He was still a long way from the Yuan Su stage. Besides that, not only was Su-yi's natural talent terrifying, what was even more shocking was that he actually established his own sect and was able to gain a firm foothold in the Chaos region. How could such ability be something that an ordinary person could accomplish? The 9th Holy Sun was injured in that battle. After he recovered, he went into closed-door cultivation for a long time. He came out of closed-door cultivation a few days ago and stepped into the Origin Void stage as well. Suddenly, Elder Hiroshi said this out of the blue. Oh, but the young man obviously didn't care about this anymore. What he wanted more in his heart was still Su-yi. Looks like I've made too many mistakes during this 1 year of closed-door cultivation. The young man sighed, but his eyes erupted with a bright brilliance. No one knew exactly what he was thinking in his heart. Right, Elder Hiroshi, you said earlier that Su-yi should have been a disciple of my holy mountain. Yet why did he become a member of the Shunjian Gate? Moreover, he even formed such a great enmity with my holy mountain? Suddenly, the young man thought of this and couldn't help but ask. All of this is because of Wang Chuanda's selfishness. Elder Hiroshi gritted his teeth and told the young man about Wang Chuanda's scheme to harm Su-yi. If it wasn't for that person who was hostile, such an outstanding talent would have definitely been a member of the Holy Mountain, and everything wouldn't have come to this point today. The young man listened without saying a word. After a long time, he said, I'm going to see Master. It seems that I'll have to make a trip to the Chaos region. The Holy Mountain will always be the Holy Mountain. A mere Su-yi can't offend the dignity of the Holy Mountain. As he spoke, the young man took a step forward and covered a distance of several hundred feet. After a few steps, he disappeared from Elder Hiroshi's sight. Holy Sun! Elder Hiroshi shouted at the young man's back, but in the end, he didn't say anything and only sighed. The Holy Mountain had a Holy Sun position, but it wasn't just one. There were 9 of them. Naren Ryu was the youngest among the 9. Even though she had broken through to the origin void stage, her cultivation was still the weakest. Therefore, she was the 9th Holy Sun. However, in the outside world, the Holy Suns were not ranked. This ranking was only used within the Holy Mountain. Only after these 9 Holy Suns had all grown up would they then select the strongest one to inherit the Holy Sun's legacy. The young man just now was ranked 5th, the 5th Holy Sun. His name was Xiehong House. Was it right or wrong to tell him these things? Elder Hiroshi smiled bitterly for a long time after Xiehong House disappeared. However, he didn't think too much about it. He also rushed in the direction the young man left and soon disappeared. On this day, Xiehong House left the Holy Mountain and headed to the Chaos region. Only a few people knew about this news. Even many of the Holy Mountain's higher-ups were unaware. Elder Hiroshi, who had been following the 5th Holy Sun, was also asked to keep it a secret and not leak the news. He had to pretend that the 5th Holy Sun hadn't come out of seclusion. The Chaos region is a place of trouble. Send 2 people to follow him secretly. However, remember not to make a move unless it's absolutely necessary to avoid exposing your whereabouts. If it's an emergency, bring the Holy Sun back directly. Do not delay. A powerhouse instructed. The Chaos region was a forbidden area of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions. No one from the top 10 forces dared to casually step into it. The situation there was complicated and filled with endless killing. However, once someone from the top 10 forces of the continent appeared, they would definitely die without leaving behind even their bones. If the people there knew that a Holy Sun from the Holy Mountain had entered the Chaos region, the outcome would be obvious. In addition, traces of a new mystic realm have appeared in the northwest of the Chaos region. If the situation permits, you can go there and investigate. The Holy Sun is not far from the Origin Emperor realm. If he has the chance to enter the mystic realm, he might be able to finally break through. This is an opportunity, but also a challenge. Remember, you must protect him well. The powerhouse who gave the order instructed again. Then 2 powerful existences walked out of the Holy Mountain and hid in the dark, following Xiehong House. This situation was tightly covered up by the Holy Mountain. Very few people knew about it. Chapter 1247. Su Yi was saying goodbye to Ji Tianfu, Ji Hanhua, Yuan Xuan, and the others outside the Xinjiang sect. In the end, he did not bring Ji Hanhua with him. After all, Su Yi did not want to go with his real identity on this trip to investigate the arcane realm. Ji Hanhua was the daughter of the Xinjiang sect's leader. Many people had seen her at the Alliance Conference. Therefore, she might be recognized along the way. However, Feng Qi did not have such concerns. Before Su Yi met her, this little girl had been staying in the Feng family village. Later, she went into seclusion for a long time to practice the cultivation method that Merciless West had taught her. It was Feng Qi-er's first time walking out of the Bawang sect and in the Chaos Zone. Therefore, no matter where she went, no one would recognize her. Ji Hanhua's eyes were red. She was reluctant to part with Su Yi. For some reason, Su Yi had similar feelings. After Ji Hanhua recovered, Su Yi always felt that he had a trace of formless concern for this young girl in the unseen world. Let's go. However, in the end, he quickly left with Feng Qi-er and handsome Su. Half a day later, Su Yi used the art of disguise to change his appearance. He turned into a young man in his late 20s. His appearance was dignified and handsome. He also took out a brocade robe and put it on. He looked like a disciple from a big sect and had an extraordinary background. This outfit would save him a lot of trouble under normal circumstances. After all, if he had a big background, many criminals would be wary of him and would not dare to act recklessly in the Chaos Zone. Not only Su Yi, but handsome Su's appearance also changed drastically. The bird's body was dark black, and its feathers seemed to be dyed with ink. At the same time, it exuded a metallic texture. For some reason, there were wisps of black gas lingering around it. It made handsome Su look like some kind of evil bird. It was poles apart from his identity as a divine bird. His eyes were like a dark abyss that could swallow a person's soul. Not bad, not bad. This way, even if someone has seen you before, it would be hard for them to associate you with the divine bird phoenix. Looking at handsome Su, Su-yi kept nodding his head in satisfaction. Handsome Su's current appearance was filled with a murderous aura. He looked just like an evil savage beast. I am the dark demonic god. Hand over your lives. Little handsome Su pretended to be very fierce. Demonic chi rolled around his body, and when he glared at her, he really did look like a ferocious demon. Ah! Feng Qi'er was amused by him. She covered her mouth and giggled. As expected of you. Su-yi looked at the girl beside him and was very surprised. Although Feng Qi'er's cultivation base had yet to reach the Yuanjun stage, her means were extraordinary. Handsome Su's current disguise was due to the special characteristics of the Calamity Chi and the Soul Cultivation Orb. She gathered countless evil spirits and resentful spirits and placed them on Handsome Su's body. Sui could not help but be moved. Feng Qi'er's Soul Cultivation Orb was very different from a normal soul controller's means. He wondered what other special abilities she would have when she became really strong in the future. This is not a powerful means, but it can be used to fool people. But Handsome Su can't use his spiritual power. Otherwise, my means won't be able to withstand his attack. Feng Qi stuck out her tongue and said with a smile. She was not very strong yet and could only change Handsome Su's temperament. However, this was only on the surface. Once Handsome Su used his ability, it would be broken instantly. Also, this means can only fool ordinary martial artists. If you meet someone at the Yuan Emperor stage, or even stronger, you probably won't be able to escape their detection, Feng Qi'er said again. Enough, enough. As long as you don't ask me to hide, I can endure and not lose my temper. Handsome Su nodded and was very satisfied with his current appearance. Compared to being stuffed into Su-yi's arms, he would rather endure and not make a move. Okay, let's continue on our way. Su-yi smiled and continued on his journey. While walking, he suddenly thought of something and could not help but look at Feng Qi'er and said, "Oh right, from now on, let's call each other brother and sister. I'll change my name to Feng Yan." Feng Qi'er nodded and said with a smile, "Okay, brother Feng Yan." Since he had decided to change his identity, he had to do it thoroughly. Now that his appearance had changed, he naturally had to change his name as well. "Boss, what about me? I want to change my name too." Suddenly, Handsome Su shouted, "You little guy, why change your name? You can't respond when I call your name. If you open your mouth, you'll be exposed immediately." Su-yi glared at Handsome Su and said, if Handsome Su opened his mouth to speak, his cultivation would definitely be exposed. At the very least, others would think that he was a monster illusionary realm existence, which might bring some trouble. Therefore, the best way was to stop Handsome Su from talking so that he wouldn't attract attention and arouse suspicion. "Boss, I hate you." Handsome Su's face was full of grievances. Not only could he not make a move, but he was also not allowed to speak. This was intolerable. "Don't feel bad, Handsome. As long as there are no outsiders around, you can still talk to us." Feng Qi'er quickly comforted him and giggled at the same time. Handsome Su thought about it and felt that it made sense. Immediately, he was no longer distressed. The three of them continued on their journey. They were not in a hurry as they passed through the forest. In the end, Su-yi fulfilled Handsome Su's wish and gave him an extremely domineering and intimidating new name, Wind Fiend. In order to save strength, Su-yi also tamed a low-level monster spirit realm savage beast. The three of them rode on it at the same time and ran through the forest. Their speed was not fast, but it was not slow either. The Chaos Realm was very large. Its area was not smaller than any of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Approximately 30% of the area was occupied by humans, including countless rogue cultivators and forces of all sizes. Most of them were active in this area. In addition, there were also a large number of savage beasts scattered around. They also occupied a large area of the territory. Very few humans set foot in this area. There were also a few places that no one knew what they were like. Anyway, Even if someone had been there, it was extremely rare. The route that Su, Yi, and the other two took was mostly populated by humans. However, it was slightly remote so that they could avoid too much trouble. However, even if they deliberately took a detour, they still encountered many humans along the way. In the past few days, the three of them had seen no less than 3 or 4 fierce battles. In addition, there were also many murderers and robbers. In the end, it all ended with one side being defeated and killed. This is the rule of the Chaos Realm. Without true strength, you can only stay in this environment and can't break free. Chapter 1248. In the Chaos region, everything was out of one's control. Even if one wanted to stay out of harm's way and not be harmed by outsiders, one had to be strong enough. Otherwise, in this place, one would be faced with killing and fighting at all times. Almost all the rogue cultivators lived a life of blood on the edge of the blade, and there were not many good relationships. Sui knew that if it were not for his and the Bawang sect's strength, they would not have been able to escape from this rut. If one wanted to establish a foothold in the Chaos region, one had to rely on means and strength. Everything depended on one's fists. Therefore, Sui had no intention of interfering with the killings that he saw along the way. This was the rule of the Chaos region, and everyone had to abide by it. Therefore, when he deliberately avoided them, even those people did not notice their presence. There was only one time when a murderer happened to see Sui and the others after killing his opponent. He had evil intentions and suddenly attacked them. But what he didn't expect was that this seemingly very young man and woman were actually so terrifyingly powerful. The young man, who seemed to be 23 or 24 years old, lightly slapped him to the ground like a puddle of mud. Then, the young man raised his foot and stomped on the murderer's head. "Are you okay?" Seeing this, Sui could not help but ask with concern. Feng Chi-er's face instantly turned pale and did not look good. "I'm fine." Feng Chi-er shook her head. "You have to get used to the rules of survival of a martial artist. The Chaos region is more terrifying than the outside world, but this world is the same no matter where you go. You will eventually face killing and bloodshed. This is unavoidable," Sui said. Then he stepped onto the back of the savage beast and reached out to pull Feng Chi up. He did not say much. Feng Chi had lived in the Feng family village for many years. She was simple and kind. Before her elder brother, Merciless West, taught her cultivation techniques, she was useless. To her, killing was something she had never seen before. Therefore, when she saw Sui kill a rogue cultivator with a calm expression, Feng Chi-er's face turned pale. However, she also understood the logic of Sui's words, but it was not so easy to accept. The few of them stopped talking and continued to ride on their barbaric beasts. In order to not attract too much attention, Sui tamed a barbaric leopard this time. It wasn't a flying beast and could only travel through the forest. "Boss, I want to eat barbecue." Suddenly, handsome Sui said to Sui, "Why do you only know how to eat?" Sui rolled his eyes and said snappily. Sui didn't know what to do with handsome Sui, who was always clamoring for barbecued meat. "How would I know how to eat? I haven't had barbecued meat in months." However, handsome Sui was not happy. He curled his lips and said with dissatisfaction. Sui was speechless, but he couldn't refute. It was true that they hadn't eaten barbecued meat for a long time. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but be tempted. He rode on the barbarian leopard and sped away, purposely heading towards some remote mountain forests. Unfortunately, they didn't see any other barbaric beasts even after traveling for a long distance. No barbaric beasts attacked them. Under such circumstances, handsome Sui couldn't help but stare at the barbaric leopard under Sui's feet and start drooling. Sensing that someone was looking at it, as if it was a delicacy, the barbaric leopard shrunk its neck and started to tremble. "This is the strength of our legs, not for you to eat." Sui knocked on handsome Sui's head. This glutton was actually thinking about their mounts. Sui wouldn't allow that. In fact, Sui felt a sense of closeness towards the barbaric demon beasts. He would not kill them easily. This feeling was probably due to the influence of the mysterious space. The primordial origin supreme technique that he cultivated also had a demonic but not evil temperament. Generally, he wouldn't kill barbaric beasts that weren't hostile to him and didn't attack him. He wouldn't take their lives just to satisfy his appetite. In fact, he wasn't sure if this was a good thing or not. "I'm so hungry." Handsome Su covered his stomach with his wings. He had been complaining about his hunger ever since he thought about barbecued meat. There's movement. Suddenly, Su-yi and Handsome Su became alert. The two of them could hear the sound of rushing wind coming from the forest. It was obvious that someone was running quickly in the forest. When the barbaric leopard under their feet heard this, it instantly tensed up and stopped in its tracks. A moment later, they saw a figure rush to a place not far away, seemingly in a hurry. The figure didn't seem to notice the existence of the two of them, the bird and the barbaric beast. She directly dove into a pile of bushes and hid. "It's a little girl." Su-yi looked around and saw the hidden figure. It was a girl. She had a slender figure and wore a water-patterned silk dress. He couldn't see her face clearly, but he guessed that she wasn't very old. After the girl hid, she also retracted her aura. However, she still couldn't escape Su-yi and Handsome Su's senses. "She's probably hiding because she's being chased." Handsome Su whispered into Su-yi's ear. Sure enough, after a short while, they heard a group of people shouting as they approached this place. "That little girl, Shui-wei, can't have run far. You must catch her. If sect leader Feng is happy, everyone will be rewarded." "Yes, sect leader, hurry up and find her. She can't run away. You must find her." The voices came from afar, accompanied by a series of figures moving through the air. Based on the commotion, Su-yi estimated that there were about 6 people chasing after them. They were all at the origin spirit realm. Only 2 of them were at the Yuanjin realm, and *GSU, he didn't care about such trash at all, and he didn't want to get involved in this matter. "Ignore them. Let's continue on our way." Su-yi spoke and indicated for Man about to continue on their way, yet he didn't intentionally avoid them. This sort of scene probably occurred every single day in the Chaos region, and he didn't want to meddle in other people's business. Even if it was a girl that was being chased, Su-yi didn't intend to pay attention to it. At the same time, he didn't care about those people that were chasing after them. After all, he had the strength to be unafraid of them, and he could count himself lucky if those people didn't offend him. However, the heavens didn't go according to one's wishes. Man Bao was just about to make a move when a rain of arrows pierced through the dense forest and whistled towards him, causing him to shrink back nervously and stop on the spot. Su-yi couldn't help but frown when he saw this, and then he lightly flicked his sleeve. An expanse of light that wasn't bright swept out and struck down the rain of arrows, causing all of them to be minced into powder. "Boss, looks like we've been targeted." Chapter 1249. Just as little Handsome Su finished speaking, 6 figures appeared in the nearby forest. 4 of them held bows in their hands, while the other 2 held swords and sabers. Su-yi observed them for a moment and sensed their cultivations. The 4 people with bows were all at the origin spirit stage, and their ages ranged from 30 to 40 years old. As for the 2 people with sabers and swords, they were both at the origin true stage and were similarly in their 40s. These 6 people all had the valiant aura of bandits, and their faces were fierce-looking. They were probably experts of Howl's Mountain Woods. "It's not Shui Peng, that little girl. It's a kid and a little girl." When they saw Su-yi, they were first stunned and then spoke for the man with the saber. His brows slightly furrowed as his gaze swept the surroundings as if he was searching for something. "Kid, let me ask you, did you see a little girl pass by here?" At this moment, the middle-aged man with the sword stared at Su-yi and asked coldly. "I don't know," Su-yi calmly replied. "Kid, do you really not know? Or are you intentionally hiding it? Hurry up and tell us the truth. Otherwise, we won't be merciful." Hearing Su-yi's words, another origin spirit stage practitioner around the age of 30 spoke out and used a fierce gaze to stare at Su-yi. The remaining people all stared coldly at the man and woman opposite them. I said I don't know. If you know what's good for you, then don't provoke me. Su, he couldn't be bothered to pay attention to these people. He called out a man bow and said, "Let's go." These men weren't experts, so Su, he didn't even have the interest to make a move against them. However, the ferocious men did not know this. One arrogant kid, you're simply courting death. It won't be so easy to leave. As these words sounded out, the figures of the 4 origin spirit stage practitioners flashed. With a few flashes, they landed beside Su, E, and split into 4 directions, surrounding the 2 of them, the bird and man bow. I'm afraid this kid's background isn't small. Why don't we just let him go? Not far away, the man with the saber frowned again. At this time, Su, he was wearing a brocade robe and a jade belt. He looked to be about 23 or 24 years old and had an extraordinary bearing. He looked very much like a disciple of some great power. As a result, the burly man became suspicious and was afraid that he would get into trouble. What are you afraid of? So what if he's a disciple of a big power? He's not in a sect right now. No one can protect him. The burly man with the sword in his hand sneered. Yuan Shi flickered under his feet as he landed in front of Su Yi. The man with the saber thought for a moment and didn't hesitate any longer. A moment later, he followed. In this world, there are always so many people who are willing to throw their lives away. A trace of coldness appeared on Su Yi's face. Even though he didn't want to cause trouble, he was unable to prevent others from taking the initiative to provoke him. Kid, speak quickly. Did you see anyone pass by here? If you really didn't see anyone, then hand over all your spatial pouches, and we'll let all of you live. The 4 people with the bow sneered endlessly as they spoke. There are plenty of spatial pouches and quite a few treasures within them. But you can't take them away with just the likes of you. So he said lightly. At the same time, his eyes flickered with a piercingly cold light. In the next instant, his figure drew a perfectly straight line and instantly appeared in front of an origin spirit stage practitioner. Then, he lightly slapped out with his palm. Under the practitioner's astonished gaze, this palm landed on his chest. Bang! A muffled sound was accompanied by a bloody mist as the origin spirit stage practitioner's body directly exploded into nothingness. But all of this was merely the beginning. Su Yi's figure was like a ghost. With an unbelievable speed, he once again appeared beside another person and similarly slapped out with his palm. Bloody mist filled the air. Immediately after, the 3rd and 4th person also died an unnatural death under the same move. Such a scene made the 2 primordial true realm experts dumbstruck. The 2 rubbed their eyes in disbelief, as if they had just experienced an illusion. But the reality before their eyes very quickly shook their hearts fiercely. Fear instantly filled their hearts as the color drained from their faces. 4 origin spirit stage practitioners were killed before they could even react. How could such a method be done by an ordinary person? At the very least, the 2 Yuan Zhun stage practitioners asked themselves honestly. They absolutely couldn't do it. My lord, we didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive us. The man with the saber instantly panicked as he spoke with a trembling voice. As for the man with the sword, his figure suddenly retreated rapidly as he fled into the distance. It's too late to say this now. These words came out of Su Yi's mouth as he pointed his finger forward. A ray of origin chi light shot out like a powerful arrow, leaving the bow, piercing through the air. Whoosh! The origin chi light caught up with the fleeing man in an instant and pierced through his heart. His corpse fell limply to the ground. After doing all this, Su Yi turned around and slammed his palm onto the chest of the man with the saber beside him. Puffed! The man spat out blood as he flew backward. When he landed on the ground, there was no more sound. Boss, quickly see if there's anything good. Su Xiaoshui excitedly flew out and found a space pouch on the body of the man in the distance. He handed it to Su Yi. The space pouch of the man next to him was also found by Su Yi. With Su Yi's current soul strength, the soul strength on these 2 people's space pouches couldn't stop him at all. Very quickly, they were cracked open. A bunch of poppers. After opening the space pouch, Su Yi said with a slightly disappointed expression. There was nothing valuable inside. However, he wasn't surprised. After all, these two people's strength was average. There were only a few origin stones and some low-grade spiritual herbs in the space pouch. With Su Yi's current standards, these things were nothing to him. He threw the spiritual herbs to Su Xiaoshui, who didn't even look at them, let alone eat them. Stop hiding. You've been watching in the dark for so long. Come out. Su Yi turned his gaze and looked at a pile of bushes not far away and said softly. However, as soon as he finished speaking, there was no movement from that place for a long time. Su Yi wasn't in a hurry. He just kept staring at that place. As if feeling his gaze, after a while, a young girl finally walked out slowly with a nervous face. Are you an advanced origin chi cultivator? After walking out, she saw Su Yi, Su Xiaoshui, the bird, and the barbaric leopard. Her whole body tensed up as she was very careful. She saw everything just now. At this moment, the young girl felt that Su Yi was more dangerous than those men from before. Advanced origin chi cultivator, Su Yi was stunned. Then, he said indifferently, I guess so. Chapter 1250. Under Su Yi's gaze, Shui Yue's water-patterned silk dress accentuated her slender waist and figure. No, the skirt was a little torn at the moment, and a large part of the collar was torn open, revealing some tender snow-white skin. Moreover, this girl's face was delicate and pretty. Her eyes were like ink, her nose was straight, and her red lips were smooth and glossy. Although she was not extremely beautiful, she was definitely very pleasing to the eye. Thank you. If you didn't help me, I would have been captured by them. Shui Yu looked at Su Yi, completely unaware of her collar. When she thanked Su Yi, she was still extremely cautious, and her delicate body was as straight as a pencil. His right hand, which was as white as snow, was tightly holding onto a long sword. They were courting death. You don't have to thank me. Now that no one is chasing you, you can leave. Su Yi said calmly. He had unintentionally saved this girl. However, he did not have any evil intentions. Even if he wanted to kill her and rob her, she probably did not have anything good on her. He waved his hand and did not want to stay any longer. He signaled Manhu to continue on their way. However, just as he turned around, the girl behind him suddenly shouted anxiously, Thank you, but you have to be careful. Those people are from the Green Flame Gang. The Green Flame Gang is backed by the Blood Dragon Church. Leave this area quickly. Otherwise, if the Green Flame Gang finds out, they will not let you go. Okay, I got it. Su Yi responded and waved his hand without looking back. He sensed that the young girl took a few quick breaths before she entered the forest and quickly left. Green Flame Gang, Blood Dragon Church. Su Yi softly repeated these two names. He did not have any impression of them. They were probably just two insignificant forces in the chaos domain. After all, the forces that could be considered as decent had participated in the Alliance Conference. Therefore, he did not take the Green Flame Gang and Blood Dragon Church seriously. Su Yi, are we really not going to help her? Feng Shi, who was standing on the barbarian leopard's back, looked back from time to time and asked in a low voice. After learning of the existence of the Green Flame Gang and the Blood Dragon Church, she still felt that the girl just now would not be able to truly escape from danger, so she was somewhat worried. You little girl. Su Yi looked at her helplessly and said, The Chaos region is not a place that pays attention to chivalry. To survive here, one naturally has to face life and death challenges at all times. We can control them for a while, but we can't control them forever. Everything will be up to fate. Besides, we don't know if Shui Yue is really a good person. Upon hearing those words, Feng Shi fell into deep thought, but her beautiful brows were slightly furrowed. Su Yi saw this and did not disturb her, allowing her to think about the reasons behind it. It was true that Feng Shi was kind, but this time, Merciless West had asked her to come with her to gain experience. Along the way, Su Yi felt that he still had to teach her a lot of principles, and these principles were all comprehended by him in the midst of life and death all these years. Feng Shi, still had to comprehend everything on her own. The appearance of the Green Flame Gang and Shui was only an insignificant interlude to Su Yi. They continued on their way, not showing off, and Man Bao's speed was not slow either. After an hour, they appeared at a place 100 miles away. Su Xiaoshui had been thinking about roasted meat, so his eyes kept darting around, and he even flapped his wings and made some noise. His goal was to attract some barbaric demons to come to him. However, to his disappointment, there were many traces of human activity in the surroundings, but not a single barbaric demon was seen. "We've been on the road for so long. Let's rest for a while." It had been almost 4 days since they left Xinjian sect. They had traveled a long distance, with only 2 short breaks in between. With Man Bao's leg strength, even if he did not travel at full speed, he was still very tired. Seeing that the sky was gradually darkening, He found a small basin and began to rest. He took out an elixir for barbaric demons from his dimensional bag and gave it to Man Bao to help him recover his strength. After receiving the elixir, Man Bao's respect for Yi increased because the elixir was very beneficial to him. "Boss, I'm going to walk around." Before Yi could sit down, Su Xiaoshui flapped his wings and flew away. "I'm afraid Su Xiaoshui is going to look for meat again." Feng Qi stared blankly at Su Xiaoshui in shock. She could not understand why Su Xiaoshui was so obsessed with roasted meat. "Let him be. Where can he find barbaric demons in this area?" Yi did not care at all. This area was human territory. Barbaric demons would not set foot in this area under normal circumstances. Su Xiaoshui's trip was probably in vain. Besides, he was not worried about Su Xiaoshui's safety at all. That little guy was now in the 8th stage of the Demon Emperor realm. There were not many people in the entire Chaos territory who could threaten him. The possibility of him appearing here was even smaller. After all, Su Xiaoshui knew that there were no major forces in this area. He found a rock and sat down cross-legged. He closed his eyes and began to meditate. Throughout the journey, he had spent most of his time cultivating on Man Bao's back. He did not dare to relax too much. Improving his strength was the most important thing. He still had too many things to do. Without sufficient cultivation, it was impossible for him to achieve all his goals. Has Yi always been so hardworking? No wonder he's already so strong when he's about the same age as me. Feng Qi could not help but be moved when she saw the situation. She did not waste any time. She found a place not far from Yi and began to cultivate. Both of them entered a state of cultivation. Man Bao had no intention of escaping. After taking the elixir, he began to do the same. Night slowly enveloped the land. The forest became so dark that one could not even see their fingers in front of them. All of a sudden, the two of them and the beast emitted a blurry light. It was very dazzling in the dark night. After another 2 hours, Yi suddenly opened his eyes. Immediately after, he saw a huge creature falling from the sky and smashing hard on the ground not far from him. W. Zheng. Version A head /air and _K roar. Man Bao was shocked by the commotion. He jumped up from the ground and arched his body, ready to attack. Feng Qi was also shocked. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. However, before she could take a closer look at the gigantic creature on the ground, she heard a familiar voice. "Boss, I found the meat." Su Xiaoshui exclaimed in surprise. With a swoosh, he flew to Yi and flapped his wings excitedly. This is... Chapter 1251. Even in the dark of the night, Yi could see clearly that the python was over 300 feet long. Its entire body was dark green, and it had 4 pairs of wings. The 2 pairs of wings were silver, and they looked like 4 giant guillotines. After being thrown down by Su Xiaoyu, the python writhed weakly. It was obvious that it was severely injured and could no longer fly. Silver-winged green python. This is an advanced demon true realm savage beast. It has a high chance of entering the demon illusionary realm. He was slightly stunned. He didn't know how far Su Xiaoyu had run to catch this savage beast. This area was human territory, and there were very few savage beasts. Unlike the area around the Bawang sect, it was originally the territory of savage beasts. Savage beasts could be seen at any time. I was just walking around and didn't expect to meet this idiot. It even dared to attack me. Su Xiaoyu curled his lips and said disdainfully, "This guy seems to be looking for someone. I didn't want to attack him, but since he provoked me, I can only bring him back to eat." Su Yi heard this and realized that Su Xiaoyu hadn't run too far. It was strange that such a savage beast had appeared in the area. "Let me go, or my master won't let you go." Just as Su Yi was stunned, the struggling silver-winged green python said weakly to Su Yi, "Master? So it's someone else's mount. No wonder." Su Yi was stunned once again, but he instantly understood. He didn't expect Su Xiaoyu to catch someone else's mount. Su Yi didn't say much. After all, it attacked Su Xiaoyu first. So what if he caught it? Not only that, he was going to roast it and eat it. "Human, can you understand me?" The silver-winged green python was stunned when it heard Su Yi's muttering. "Who is your master?" Su Yi didn't answer and only asked, "Human, let me go." The silver-winged green python was very stubborn. It didn't answer Su Yi's question. Instead, it struggled to twist its body and glared at Su Yi. "It's fine if you don't want to answer. I don't plan to let you live anyway." Su Yi pursed his lips and slowly walked up to the silver-winged green python's head. He slammed his palm down and smashed the head into pieces, causing blood to spurt out. The python's body twitched a few times before it fell silent. "Boss, hurry up and roast the meat." Su Xiaoshui was so excited that he kept flying around Su Yi. "All right," Su Yi responded with a smile. He was also very greedy and immediately started eating. They found a small pond nearby and began to clean the silver-winged green python. Su Yi cut off a small part of the python's body and set up a fire to roast it. At the same time, he took out a big pot and stewed a pot of delicious meat soup. Not long after, the aroma of meat wafted through the air, whetting everyone's appetite. Su Xiaoshui didn't care about anything else. After a piece of python meat was cooked, he picked it up with his wings and gnawed on it until his mouth was covered in oil. "Feng Qi, you have a piece too." Su Yi threw a piece to Feng Qi. This little girl hadn't eaten Su Yi's roast meat before, so she didn't understand why he was so obsessed with roast meat. After taking a bite of the roast meat, Feng Qi's big eyes lit up. He nodded his head and began to eat quickly in small bites. "And you, this python meat will be very beneficial for you." Su Yi didn't hesitate and threw another piece of roast python meat to Savage Leopard. A silver-winged green python at the advanced level of Demon True Realm was definitely a great supplement for Savage Leopard at the Demon Spirit Realm. It could increase his strength by a lot. After Savage Leopard ate the meat, a warm current flowed through his body and he began to gain great benefits. His eyes flickered and he finished the rest of the python meat in a few bites. Then, he quickly ran to the side and closed his eyes to breathe. Su Yi smiled and continued to cut a big piece of meat to roast. He could imagine that the master of this silver-winged green python must be very powerful. Someone who had the ability to tame such a savage beast was definitely not simple. Su Yi estimated that the master was at least at the advanced level of Origin Void Realm. But he didn't care. Even if the master was at the Origin Emperor Realm, it wouldn't matter. Since the silver-winged green python dared to attack Su Xiaoshui, it was courting death. As for Su Xiaoshui, he would have a human head to eat even if he was hungry. Of course, he wouldn't reject it. "Let me try this soup." The meat in Su Yi's hand was almost cooked. He put it aside and took out a big spoon from his interspatial bag. He took a spoonful and drank a mouthful with a face full of enjoyment. It had to be said that the python meat had a completely different taste whether it was stewed or roasted. When stewed, the soup was thick and juicy, while when roasted it was crispy and delicious. "Boss, give me a bowl too." On the other side, handsome Su yelled as he chewed on the meat in big mouthfuls. Su Yi smiled. He took out a few more big bowls and filled them with steaming hot soup. He and handsome Sue ate a mouthful of barbecued meat and a mouthful of soup. Both of them looked very happy. Feng Chi was more reserved. After all, she was a girl and had to be more reserved. Not long after, when she finished a big piece of roast meat and drank a big bowl of soup, she couldn't resist the surging energy in her body and ran to the side to cultivate like savage leopard. They wanted to dissolve this energy and use it to cultivate and improve themselves a little more. I'm so full. Boss, I'm so happy. After a long time, Su Xiaoshuai's belly was bulging. He kept rolling on the ground and yelling. A pair of wings stroked its round belly, and its expression of satisfaction was beyond words. I haven't eaten such delicious food in a long time. He sat on the ground and looked at Su Xiaoshuai's appearance. He only felt that it was very funny. With his and Su Xiaoshuai's current strength, the energy in the python meat was not very useful. At most, it could satisfy their appetite. Not far from them, there was still a large piece of python meat lying there. It was not finished yet. He decided to keep it so that he could have a few more meals. Boss, we ate one of their mounts. Do you think its owner will come and find us? Suddenly, handsome Su stopped rolling and asked with a guilty look on his face. You only thought of that now. Su smiled and looked at Su Xiaoshuai. Don't worry. Since it attacked your mount, its owner can't be a good person. I see. Then I'm relieved. Su Xiaoshuai replied, and then continued rolling on the ground. He wasn't really afraid that the silver-winged green python's owner would find them. After all, with his cultivation, there was no need to be afraid. Chapter 1252. On the other hand, since Su said that the silver-winged green python attacked handsome Su, its master must not be a good person. Even if the other party came looking for him, handsome Su would be able to take care of them as well. In fact, there were no good people in the Chaos Realm. Each one was more ruthless than the last. Only those with powerful backers would have the courage to talk about humanity and magnanimity. The two of them should be able to improve their strength this time. Su looked at Feng Chi and Manbao. Their bodies were glowing, and their auras were circulating endlessly. Especially Manbao. Su felt that his cultivation might have a breakthrough. After all, eating the flesh of a demon true realm cultivator was extremely beneficial to Manbao. Looks like we'll have to wait. He didn't know how long Feng Chi and Manbao would cultivate for, but it seemed like they couldn't continue their journey tonight. They could only wait until tomorrow. Boss, let's put away the rest of the meat. Su Xiaoshuai held comfortably on the ground for a while. Then, he flew up and grabbed the remaining half of the python's meat with his claws. He came to Su Yi's side and gestured for him to take out the space bag. Just as he was about to take action, he suddenly felt someone approaching. Su Xiaoshuai also looked over and saw a figure flying toward them from afar. The bonfire on the ground burned fiercely like a bright lamp, attracting the figure to come forward. Don't tell me that the silver-winged green python's master is here. Su was stunned. Then he saw the figure appear in front of him, standing on top of a big tree. At this moment, Su Xiaoshuai was still holding the remaining half of the python's meat in his claws. It was extremely eye-catching. How dare you, little bastard! How dare you kill my sect master's mount? When the person saw Su and Su Xiaoshuai, he didn't have much of a reaction. However, when he saw the remaining half of the python's body, he was stunned for a long time. Immediately after, a furious roar erupted from his mouth. Su and Su Xiaoshuai looked at each other. Did this mean that the silver-winged green python's master is here? If I told you that I picked it up on the road and ate it because I didn't want to waste it, would you believe me? Su gestured for handsome Su to keep quiet, but he said something like that. The man was obviously stunned, and then became even angrier as he shouted, "Little bastard, this old master will tear you to pieces." The expert's angry roar spread far and wide in the night. Su could clearly see that it was an old man in his 50s or 60s. I don't know whose mount this is, but since it attacked us, it deserves to die. You can leave now. Otherwise, I'll deal with you as well. Sui's expression also became gloomy. After the other party appeared, he kept calling him little thief and little bastard, which made him feel extremely gloomy. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, another series of wind-breaking sounds rang out in the forest. A moment later, several figures appeared. Sugi looked around and saw 7 or 8 burly men. Their auras were condensed, and their cultivation was not weak. Most of them were above the Yuanjin stage. In addition, there was also a middle-aged man in his 40s who was tied up. His body was covered in blood, and it was obvious that he was captured by these people. Elder Zhong, what happened? Among the people, an advanced Yuanjin stage powerhouse raised his head and looked at the person on the top of the tree. However, the old man did not answer. Instead, he moved and Yuan Qi surged out from his hands. In an instant, a blood-red roulette was formed, and he threw it at Su Yi. Very well, this old master wants to see how a little bastard like you can deal with me as well. As the old man's Yuanjin stage aura surged, the surrounding forest trembled. The blood-red roulette streaked across the sky, causing a sharp whistle. Everywhere it passed, there was a burst of air. You'll know when you try. Su Yi snorted coldly. Facing the attack of the roulette, he did not dodge. Instead, he met it head-on. He stepped into the air, and a series of footprints appeared in the void. Finally, these footprints gathered together to form a huge footprint. 8 Desolate's fury, suppressing the mountains and rivers with a single step. These words came out of Su Yi's mouth. The last footprint, in an extremely barbaric manner, stomped down fiercely on the old man's blood-red roulette. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and the forest shook. Boundless blood-red light exploded like a rain of light. However, Su Yi's footprints did not diminish. They went straight down and finally stomped on the mountain. Boom! Another earth-shattering sound rang out. A storm swept through the forest, and countless trees were blown to the side. At the place where the footprints landed, there was a huge pit that was several feet deep. Oofed! Under the impact of the boundless storm, the old man instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. He originally wanted to directly capture the young man, but he never expected that the young man's strength would be so formidable, causing him to be instantly injured due to his carelessness. The old man's face was filled with shock as he staggered back. The remaining people that had just rushed over from the forest all retreated to the distance, and they were all extremely astounded. You're only at the 5th level of the Yuanjin stage, yet you dare make a fuss before me? Fuck off now. Otherwise, I don't mind leaving an old dog like you here. Su Yi stood in the sky and stared coldly at the old man as he spoke. Below him, Feng Che and Man Bao were still cultivating, and he didn't want to disturb them. Otherwise, he could deal with a 5th level Yuanjin stage old man with a flip of his hand. Opposite him, Elder Zhong held his chest, and the corners of his eyes twitched fiercely. He was extremely terrified in his heart, yet he didn't know that a young man that looked to be only 24 or 25 years old had such a formidable strength that had already attained the Yuanjin stage. Moreover, based on the way he attacked earlier, his cultivation seemed to not be inferior to his own. This was too terrifying. Very good. Elder Zhong tightly gritted his teeth and said coldly, Kid, you're very strong indeed, but our sect master is nearby. You killed my sect master's mount, so even if you have 10 lives, it won't be enough for you to die today. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and said to the 7 or 8 people below, Let's go. However, in the next moment, he just turned around when he noticed from the corner of his eyes that the young man had actually stepped on the sky and swiftly chased after him. The old man's heart went cold for no reason, and he originally wanted to turn around and continue the battle. But he thought about it and quickly left as he didn't dare continue being entangled here. Everything should wait until he converged with the sect master. However, what caused him to be horrified was that before he could flash out over 100 meters, a piercingly cold, strong wind violently assaulted him from behind. At the same time, an extremely cold voice entered into the old man's ears. You actually dare to threaten me? Then you can leave your life here. This is the consequence of threatening me. Chapter 1253. Following Su Yi's words, a heavy punch followed. Origin Chi transformed into a fist with the power to split mountains. It was as if a mountain had smashed down and landed heavily on Elder Zhong's back. Bang! A muffled sound came from the old man's chest and resounded between heaven and earth. Such a punch caused the old man's back to cave in. His chest and back were instantly pressed together. His figure shot out like an arrow from a bow, drawing a straight line as he flew into the distance. After a long time, the sound of trees being smashed could be heard. Oomph. After doing this, Su Yi snorted lightly and did not go over to check. This was because he sensed that the old man no longer had any signs of life after taking that punch. His breathing had stopped. Su Yi's eyes were extremely cold. He originally wanted to let the old man go and did not want to waste his time. Feng Qi, and Man Bao were still cultivating, and he did not want to disturb them. Who would have thought that the old man did not know what was good for him and actually dared to threaten him? Then, he could not be blamed for killing the old man in a thunderous manner. This group of people must have nothing good. Then, let's kill them all. At the place where the meat was roasted, Su Xiaoshui threw down a large chunk of python meat. With a flap of his wings, a valiant aura surged out. A bright light emitted from his body. With a flap of his wings, he swept across an extremely long distance and caught up with the other 7 or 8 cultivators in an instant. Su Xiaoshui's figure could only be seen flying in the night. His 2 wings were like sharp blades as they swept across the air. Every time they landed, they would slash across a person's throat. After a few slashes, the previous group of people all fell into a pool of blood. Demon illusionary stage. Seeing this scene, the middle-aged man who was tied up could not help but speak in a daze. His face was filled with astonishment. A small bird that could speak could kill 7 or 8 cultivators before they could even resist. With such strength, there was no doubt that he was at the demon illusionary stage. Boss, what should we do with this person? Should we kill him as well? Su Xiaoshui stared at the remaining middle-aged man. This person was obviously an enemy of the previous group of people, so he asked Su Yi if he should kill him. There's no rush. Su Yi descended from the sky and asked little handsome Su to bring the middle-aged man to where Feng Qi and Man Bao were. He first put the half of the python meat on the ground into his interspatial bag. Then he looked at the middle-aged man and asked, "Who were those people just now?" Under Su Yi's gaze, the middle-aged man could not help but purse his lips, inhaling and calming himself down. They are from the Blood Dragon Church. You should leave quickly. The Blood Dragon cult's cult master, Feng Yeming, is extremely powerful. He broke through to the Origin Emperor realm not long ago. He will find this place very soon. Blood Dragon Sect. Su Yi raised his eyebrows. This was the second time he had heard of this sect. The fact that Shui Yu had been hunted down previously seemed to be related to this Blood Dragon Church as well. However, Su Yi still did not care. This sect that he had never heard of was not enough to move him. After thinking for a moment, he pointed out a finger and cut off the ropes on the middle-aged man's body. At the same time, he sent his origin chi into the middle-aged man's body and undid the restrictions on him. Origin Void Realm, not bad. Sensing the flow of power in the middle-aged man's body, Su Yi nodded his head. This person looked to be around 40 years old, but had the cultivation of the middle level of the Origin Void Realm. He was not weak. However, at this moment his strength was damaged and he was injured. The flow of Origin Chi was also not very smooth. I am Shui Qianshou. Thank you for saving my life. The middle-aged man immediately relaxed and felt the power in his Qi flowing back into his meridians. He could not help but thank Su Yi with cupped fists. Su Yi waved his hand, not caring at all. However, after hearing the middle-aged man's name, he could not help but ask, Shui Qianshou, is it another person with the surname Shui? What is your relationship with Shui Yu? These 2 people with the surname Shui had met Su Yi on the same day. They might really be related. Shui Yu. Shui Qianshou was stunned at first. Then he was suddenly overjoyed. At the same time, he said nervously, she is my niece. Have you seen Shuei before? Where is he now? Is he well? So you are uncle and niece. Su Yi understood. Shuei Qianqiu was Shuei Yu's uncle. This was really a coincidence. I have met her before, but she was being chased. The people who chased her were from the Green Flame Gang. However, they were killed by me, just like those people from the Blood Dragon Church. However, I do not know where she is now, Su Yi said calmly. People from the Green Flame Gang. Shuei Qianqiu gritted his teeth and took half a step back. He cupped his fists and bowed deeply to Su Yi, saying, Shuei Qianqiu thanks you for saving my uncle and niece. I am eternally grateful. Su Yi nodded his head and accepted this bow. He then asked, what is the background of this Blood Dragon Church? I don't seem to have heard of it. Tell me about it. Su Yi found a rock and sat down. He gestured for Shuei Qianqiu to sit down as well. Since Feng Qi, and Man Bao were still cultivating, he might as well learn more about the Blood Dragon Church. After all, he had dealt with the Blood Dragon Church twice. Since the Green Flame Gang was backed by the Blood Dragon Church, they could be considered as a member of the Blood Dragon Church. Shuei Qianqiu sorted out his thoughts. He still had a lingering fear in his heart. You must be from some big force. It is normal that you have not heard of the Blood Dragon Church. Shuei Qianqiu took a deep look at Su Yi. Such a young man at the Origin Void Realm could kill Elder Zhong in one blow. He must have a big background. There was also a little bird at the Demon Void Realm following beside him. Such a combination was almost impossible for a small force or a rogue cultivator. Shuei Qianqiu felt that this young man was probably one of the most outstanding disciples of the three big forces. He was so young, but so powerful. No wonder he dared to walk in the Chaos region. However, he did not ask too much. He was afraid that he would offend this young man. If this young man was unhappy, he might have to die here. After all, the Chaos region was like this. It was normal for someone to save you in 1 second and kill you in the next. Shuei Qianqiu paused for a moment and continued. This area is called the Red Dragon Ridge. Originally, the forces were mixed and divided. The Blood Dragon Church, the Green Flame Gang, and my Frenzy Mercenary Group were all part of it. Although there was a difference in strength between them, it was not very big. However, not long ago, the leader of the Blood Dragon Church, Feng Yiming, suddenly broke through to the Origin Emperor realm and his strength increased greatly. This suddenly broke the balance here. Therefore, the Blood Dragon Church began to annex everywhere. Any forces big or small that resisted were all killed. Su Yi listened and nodded secretly. This was a normal situation. The Chaos region was like this. Once one side had absolute strength, they would definitely annex all the small forces. Chapter 1254. When the various forces were of similar strength in the past, they would grit their teeth and endure the friction between them. No one would really fight to the death. However, it was different now. The leader of the Blood Dragon Church had broken through from the Origin Void Realm to the Origin Emperor Realm, raising the Blood Dragon Church by a level. Of course, they had to settle the score. Many small forces were destroyed or swallowed up. Among them, the Green Flame Gang was the first to see the situation and very decisively sided with the Blood Dragon Church. Originally, for our Wild Billow Mercenary Alliance, joining the Blood Dragon Church was not something unbearable. After all, such situations often happen in the Chaos region. Shuei Qianqiu continued, but his face suddenly became sorrowful and angry. However, that Feng Yiming was extremely evil and married my niece, Shuei Yu, to him as a concubine. Elder brother and I, as well as many people in the Wild Billow Mercenary Alliance, were absolutely unwilling to agree to this. After all, we could not do what the leader of the Green Flame Gang, He Jun, did and gave his wife and daughter to that pervert for pleasure in exchange for trust. Therefore, we dismissed most of the members of the Mercenary Alliance. The remaining people wanted to leave the Red Dragon Ridge and find a place to stay. However, that Feng Yiming did not give up on Shuei Yu and sent people to kill her. Elder brother also died in their hands. At this point, Shuei Qianqiu's eyes turned red. A 7 feet tall man actually had tears in his eyes. Sui could not help but be moved. He had not thought that there was such a reason behind this. As for the leader of the Green Flame Gang, he had a whole new level of respect for him. He could even give his wife and daughter to the leader of the Blood Dragon Church. Boss, how can there be such a deranged person in this world? Hearing this, little handsome Su was also sorrowful and angry. This could not be said to be kind or righteous. It could only be said that as a person, there were some principles and bottom lines that should be upheld to the end. Suyi's heart palpitated. However, he did not show it on his face and only sighed inwardly. Go and find Shueyu. After that, you can head towards the southeast direction and find Xianjian sects Ji Tianfu or Liuhis sects Linjinyang. You can temporarily stay there. Su Yi thought for a while and said to Shui Qianshou. Shui Qianshou was also a man who valued friendship. If he could lend a helping hand, he would be willing to do so. Xianjian faction. Liuhe faction. Shui Qianshou was stunned once again. Of course, he had heard of these two sections. They were extremely powerful forces. However, what was the identity of this young man? Would he really be able to get the other party to take him in? Go find them and tell Ji Tianfu or Lin Jinyang that I told you to go. They will know then. Su Yi added. He didn't go into too much detail, only hinting to Shui Qianshou that he only needed to describe their appearances. Ji Tianfu and Lin Jinyang might not know what she looked like now, but they definitely knew handsome Su. Ji Tianfu had also seen Feng Qi a year before. Good. This time, not only did you save my uncle and nephew's lives, you also pointed out the way out. Shui Qianshou thanks you. Shui Qianshou bowed again and put away his sadness. He said firmly, in the future, if you have any errands, Shui Qianshou will do anything for you. Su Yi did not say anything, nor did he avoid this bow. He only waved his hand lightly, and an invisible force lifted Shui Qianshou up. All right. Suddenly, Shui Qianshou said again, Benefactor, you should leave this place as soon as possible. In the Blood Dragon sect, not only has Feng Yiming's cultivation reached the Origin Emperor realm, but he also has a powerful backer. It's said that he has the help of an expert from the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan. And Feng Yiming's recent increase in cultivation had a lot to do with the people of the Jade Tripod Alchemy clan. Jade Tripod Alchemy clan? These words immediately stunned Su Yi. The Jade Tripod Alchemy clan had already been destroyed. The remaining few Origin Emperor realm experts and a large number of disciples had all scattered like birds and beasts. He did not expect to be able to get news of them here. This was very unexpected. He remained calm and collected, but he asked Shui Qianshou about the location of the Blood Dragon sect. Shui Qianshou naturally told Su Yi everything he knew about the situation. Benefactor, Shui Qianshou will take his leave first. In the end, Shui Qianshou bid farewell to Su Yi and Su Xiaoshui. He turned around and left, stepping into the night. For some reason, Shui Qianshou felt a little excited. He knew that this young man did not lie to him. A person who could casually call out the names of Ji Tianfu and Lin Jinyang definitely had a great background. In addition, before he left, Su Yi also gave him a healing pill. Boss, they won't be caught again, right? Su Xiaoshui landed on Su Yi's shoulder and asked worriedly. The sect master of the Blood Dragon sect is nearby. The people chasing after Shui, you should be the Azure Flame sect. As long as they are careful, they should be able to escape successfully. The only thing to worry about is whether Shui Qianshou can find Shui Yu quickly, Su Yi said. He no longer thought about this matter. After all, he had helped them as much as he could. The rest would depend on their fate. If Shui Qianshou could successfully go to the Xianjian sect or the Liuhe sect, Su Yi felt that he could bring him to the Bawang sect in the future. After all, an Essence Void Realm expert was also very rare. The reason why he did not let Shui Qianshou go directly to the Bawang sect was because he did not want to expose his current identity. In addition, the periphery of the Bawang sect had already been strengthened. There were a large number of barbaric beasts patrolling at all times. They would not let Shui Qianqiu get close easily. I didn't expect the Jade, Tripod, Alchemy, Sex, Essence, Emperor Realm experts to hide here and even control a small force. Boss, do you think we should go and find those people? Su Xiaoshuai's eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent as he said coldly. Everyone understood the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. The experts of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect were not completely dead. It was fine if they did not discover them in the past, but now that they had appeared, it was best to kill them all. Those people are just clowns. They are no longer a concern. Su, he said. Then, the corners of his mouth slowly curled up, revealing a hint of a smile. He said, their lives are worthless. However, those people took away a lot of good things. His eyes were bright, and there was a flickering light in them. Su Xiaoshuai immediately understood what Sui meant. After the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect was destroyed, the remaining Essence Emperors saw that the situation was not good and left in advance. They also went back and took away all the treasures and prenatal stones of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect. Previously, Su, he was very regretful because at that time, the Bawang sect was seriously injured and could not plunder on a large scale. Even the remaining small profits of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect were divided up by many small forces. Not a single strand of hair was left. Now, he actually accidentally discovered the few Essence Emperors of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect here. It seems that what should be mine can't escape no matter what. Hee. Chapter 1255. After chatting with handsome Su for a while, Su, he found a place to sit down and began cultivating. Feng Qi, and Man Bao were still digesting the energy they had obtained from the silver-winged green python's meat. Su, he decided to wait for them to wake up. With handsome Su keeping watch nearby, he wasn't worried that someone would suddenly appear and disturb them. The night passed silently. When the sky brightened, Feng Qi, and Man Bao's auras were steaming and spreading out like clouds. Their auras were growing and were much stronger than before. Su, he slowly opened his eyes with a smile on his face. How was it? Did you get some benefits? He asked softly as he looked at Feng Qi, who had finished exhaling and stopped cultivating. You've improved quite a bit. I didn't know that eating the meat of a barbaric demon beast would have such a great benefit. Feng Qi looked at Su and said while blinking her eyes. Roar. Man Bao also let out a low roar and crawled in front of Su. Not bad. Both of you have improved. Su could understand the beast language and knew that Man Bao was thanking him. The energy in the silver-winged green python's meat was very effective for him and Feng Qi. Although they couldn't use it to break through, they would definitely improve. Boss, let's go. Handsome Su said while flapping his wings. Su nodded. Without further delay, they rode on Man Bao and began traveling through the forest. This time, they changed their direction slightly and headed east. That was where the Blood Dragon sect was located. It was where Shui Qianqiu had pointed them to. On the way, Feng Qi changed handsome Su's temperament into a ferocious one. When he attacked last night, their previous arrangements were instantly destroyed. Man Bao was very fast. After an hour, they had already traveled close to 100 miles. The few of them stopped and observed their surroundings. Perhaps because they were getting closer to the Blood Dragon sect, they began to see sporadic figures in the surroundings. Most of them looked like lone cultivators who traveled alone. Some of these people were heading in the same direction. The Blood Dragon Church should be nearby. Let's go take a look. Su, he spoke. The barbarian leopard continued moving forward. As expected, not long after, they saw a building appear in their field of vision. These buildings were very scattered, and there was no pattern to speak of, but there were quite a number of them. Overall, it looked very similar to a small town in the mortal world. As expected of a small faction, they don't even have a city. Su muttered to himself. He guessed that the small town ahead was probably the center of a certain force in the Red Dragon Ridge. There are also some shops and people coming and going, but it was definitely not prosperous. Compared to Swordstar City, it was like heaven and earth. The difference was too great. There wasn't even a city wall here, only a circle of fences. Many places were severely damaged, and it was just for show. I wonder if the Blood Dragon Church is here. Boss, do you want to go take a look first? Little handsome Su jumped on his Su Yi's head and said as he looked from afar, "From now on, you're not allowed to speak, unless it's necessary for you to attack. Be a good little bird." Su Yi pulled him down from the top of his head and instructed him again. All right. Handsome Su had no choice but to lower his head and agree. Su Yi brought Feng Qi down from the barbarian leopard's back. With handsome Su on his shoulder, they began to walk towards the small town. The barbarian leopard followed closely behind. Such a team attracted the attention of many people as soon as they got close. However, no one dared to approach them. After all, Su Yi was wearing a brocade robe and a jade belt. He looked very heroic, and it was obvious that he had a background. Su, Brother Feng Yun, how we find the Blood Dragon Church? Do we have to search slowly? Looking at the surrounding buildings, Feng Qi couldn't help but ask. This small town didn't look prosperous, but it wasn't small either. It would definitely take some time to search slowly. That's easy. Su Yi smiled. His gaze swept across the not-so-dense crowd on the street. He saw a group of 7 or 8 people. These people were wearing the same clothes. It was obvious that they were from a certain faction. Without thinking, Su Yi brought handsome Su, Feng Qi and the barbarian leopard to walk together. Soon, they arrived beside these people. You're from the Blood Dragon Church. He looked at the people in front of him and asked directly. The cultivators' ages ranged from 20 to 40 years old. When they heard Su Yi's question, they were all stunned. Then, a bearded man in his 30s chuckled and said, "That's right. We're from the Blood Dragon Church's Green Flame Hall. You two don't look familiar. And this girl, why don't you let me have some fun?" As he spoke, the man's gaze turned to Feng Qi. He took a few steps forward and reached out a hand to lift Feng Qi's chin. He had never seen such a beautiful woman. "Get lost," Feng Qi exclaimed. She waved her slender palm, and a black aura filled the air. She slapped the man's arm. Chi. Immediately, the black aura spread along the man's arm and entered his body. It followed the meridians of his arm and went straight into his organs. Ah! The man screamed like a pig being slaughtered. In just a moment, his entire body turned into the color of charcoal. Then his eyes bulged, his body stiffened, and he fell to the ground with a loud bang. Such a scene caused the remaining people to be stunned on the spot, and they were astounded in their hearts. It was Feng Qi's first time killing someone. She was a little flustered. However, when she looked at the big man on the ground whose face was completely unrecognizable, there was extreme disgust in her eyes. This kind of person deserves to die. Su Yi did not comfort Feng Qi. He only said indifferently, "Ew." The remaining people from the Green Flame Hall were horrified. This was the territory of the Green Flame Gang. They did not expect someone to behave atrociously and kill their people. It would be fine if it was just killing someone. However, the way the man died was too strange. It was terrifying for no reason. The Green Flame Hall should be the Green Flame Gang. He didn't die in vain. Su Yi did not have a good impression of the gang leader of the Green Flame Gang. A person who could exchange his wife and daughter for a life of luxury was definitely not a good person. Being a subordinate of such a person would not be any better. If he died, so be it. However, he was surprised by Feng Qi's methods. It was the girl's first time attacking, and her instincts were already so strong. Others might not be able to sense it, but Su Yi clearly noticed that Feng Qi's poisonous aura not only destroyed the man's vitality, but also devoured his soul. Chapter 12:56. Su Yi looked at the remaining members of the Azure Flame Gang and said coldly, "If those people were so shocked that they wanted to die, seeing that their companion had died strangely, they did not dare to directly attack Su Yi. They did not even dare to say a word and quickly fled like stray dogs." Su Yi watched them leave and stood by the side of the road like a javelin with his hands behind his back. He did not expect that this place was not where the Blood Dragon sect was, but the territory of the Azure Flame Gang. However, it did not matter. He had just found out that the current Azure Flame gang had already become the Blood Dragon sect's Azure Flame Hall. It did not matter who he looked for. No matter what, it should not be difficult to find the people of the Jade Tripod Alchemy sect by first finding the leader of the Azure Flame gang. Hejun Su, Yi, and Fengchi stood on the street. Su, Yi stood quietly on his shoulder, not saying a word. Behind him, Barbarian Bao was lying on the ground, looking around with his leopard eyes. The situation here quickly attracted the attention of many people in the town. Most of them were itinerant cultivators, and many people had witnessed the scene earlier. The charred corpse of the burly man on the ground began to turn into pitch-black blood, which made many people not dare to approach it. What kind of cultivation technique is that? It's actually so poisonous. Some people in the crowd spoke in shock. Looking at the corpse, they felt their scalps go numb. That girl looks like she's only in her teens. How can she have such a vicious method? However, this method is really powerful. That man just now was at least at the essence spirit realm, right? He actually died in an instant. There are also people who were speechless. Looking at the slender and elegant girl, they could not help but shiver. These two people must have a background. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to cause trouble here. No matter how strong their background is, it won't work. The leader of the Azure Flame Gang is a high-level essence Void Realm expert. Now, he has even joined the Blood Dragon sect. No matter how strong those two people are, their age is still there. How can they fight against Essence Void Realm and Essence Emperor Realm existences? Today's matter will definitely not be settled peacefully. Many people came over to watch and began to point and whisper among themselves. Those who could cause trouble here were definitely not simple people. However, that man and woman were still young after all. In front of the Azure Flame Gang and the Blood Dragon Church, they were probably not enough. Most people were not worried about Su, Yi, and Fengchi. Instead, they crossed their arms and thought that there would be a good show to watch today. They all wanted to know how that young man would die in the end. As for that young girl, she would most likely be captured and sent to the Blood Dragon Church's chief. Haha, I wonder if Feng Yiming would dare to take a woman covered in poison. Someone said. Sui heard all these words. All the surrounding spectators had probably never imagined that the young man they were ridiculing was in existence at the 9th level of the Origin Void stage, and his soul force was peerlessly formidable. All whispers were unable to escape his perception. However, Sui did not flare up. He just waited quietly. Sure enough, not long after, a figure flew over from afar. As his yuan qi rolled, his aura was blazing. He's here. Sui opened his eyes and took in the person who had just arrived. It was a lean, middle-aged man with dark skin and a short stature. Who dares to be presumptuous in my Azure Flame Hall's territory? The lean, middle-aged man's voice arrived before his person. He flew over swiftly and quickly landed in front of Su, Yi, and Fengchi. After he appeared, he did not attack immediately. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up and revealed an extremely ugly smile. This smile exposed his lips and teeth, making him look like a mouse. As expected, there really is a little girl here. She's really pretty. The middle-aged man looked at Fengchi and let out a treacherous and lewd laugh. He said, "You actually dared to cause trouble here and kill people from my Azure Flame Hall. Then, I'll take you as compensation. Once I'm done enjoying you, I can even offer you to sect leader Feng." Ha ha ha. He completely ignored Su Yi's existence and only stared fixedly at Fengchi. He seemed to be intoxicated in some kind of concept. Damn it. Damn it. Fengchi gritted her teeth. She felt extremely uncomfortable being stared at by the middle-aged man. The surrounding people who were waiting to watch a good show also widened their eyes at this moment. Everyone let out a chuckle. Hejun is here. These two are definitely going to have a hard time. It's just a pity for that little girl. If only she could give me a good time. Ha ha ha. Someone swallowed his saliva and said with a strange smile. For many people who lived in the Chaos region, human lives were sometimes used for fun. I almost forgot that there's still a little brat here. Then, I'll kill you first. The middle-aged man stared at Fengchi for a while before he turned to Sui. His face darkened as he said coldly. A golden light radiated from his body. The metal attribute energy was boiling. The power of the origin void realm surged endlessly with a sharp whistling sound. "Go to hell, little brat." The middle-aged man narrowed his eyes and raised one of his palms. Under the cover of the tyrannical metal attribute energy, a huge light palm was formed and slammed directly at Su Yi's head. At the same time, he sneered in his heart. The middle-aged man was confident that he could smash the young man in front of him into meat paste with one blow. The surrounding onlookers were also excited at this moment. The scene of blood splattering was their favorite. "You?" Percent the middle-aged man's palm pressed down, but suddenly the figure of the young man in the brocade robe shook violently and became blurred. Under everyone's gaze, the young man bent his waist and raised his leg horizontally. In an instant, the young man's leg passed through the antibody light shield outside the middle-aged man's body and ruthlessly kicked his chest. With a bang, the middle-aged man's body instantly bent like a big shrimp and flew out. He crashed into a nearby building, causing rocks to roll and instantly turning it into ruins. The surrounding onlookers were like a group of geese that had been strangled by their throats. One by one, they craned their necks and were extremely horrified. The leader of the Green Flame Gang, an advanced origin void stage powerhouse, was actually so vulnerable. Not only was the middle-aged man sent flying, but they also saw that the golden light palm hit the young man in the brocade robe, but it shattered inch by inch like porcelain. However, the young man in the brocade robe stood there as if nothing had happened. At this moment, he began to slowly withdraw his leg. "You're just a useless person." Suki did not care about what the surrounding onlookers thought. He stepped forward and walked toward the ruins of the building. In a pile of rocks, he found the middle-aged man. His face was now a bloody mess, and he looked extremely dispirited. He was so badly injured that it was difficult for him to even get up. "You must be Hee-jun. I have to say, your mouth is just as disgusting as your personality. I don't even want to kill you with my hands, because I don't want to dirty my hands." Chapter 12:57. Su Yi was truly afraid of dirtying his hands. This Hee-jun could even give his wife and daughter away in exchange for his own stability and power. And the words he had said to Feng Che earlier made Su Yi feel even more disgusted. You. Under Su Yi's feet, Hee-jun gasped for breath with difficulty, but was unable to speak for a long time. Large amounts of blood kept flowing out of his mouth. "Tell me where Feng Yeming is." Su Yi did not waste any time and directly asked. He had been on guard for the entire night. He originally thought that Feng Yeming's mount and the sect leaders group would disappear and he would be able to find him, but the truth was that he did not. Since that was the case, he could only look for him himself. Ugh! Hearing Su Yi's question, Hee-jun weakly raised his hand and pointed in a direction. However, it was still difficult for him to speak. Su Yi frowned. It seemed that he had used too much force just now. That kick was a little too heavy, and it was hard for him to even speak. "Man Bao, bring him along." Su Yi retracted his foot and said. Man Bao growled and suddenly rushed over, picking Hee-jun up with his mouth. After that, Su Yi brought Su Xiaoshui and Feng Che and walked in the direction that Hee-jun had pointed out. "I hope you don't lie, or else I'll make you die a horrible death." Su Yi glanced at Hee-jun and said coldly. He was not worried that Hee-jun would lie to him. Although the middle-aged man could not speak, his body was trembling uncontrollably. He was obviously scared to death and did not dare to lie. This kind of person even had a soft spine. It was unknown how he managed to cultivate to the origin void stage. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Asterisk the figures of Su Yi and the others flashed, quickly turning into another cluster of buildings, their figures disappearing from sight. Until now, the crowd of onlookers on the streets were all dumbstruck, unable to react in time. Everything had happened too quickly. From Hee-jun's attack to Su Yi ordering the man Bao to take him away, it had only been a short span of 10 breaths. What powerful strength! Who the hell is that young man? He's so powerful. The Green Flame Gang is probably finished. I just don't know if the Blood Dragon Church can suppress him. The sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. Everyone on the street was horrified. Just as they had expected, today's matter was not going to end well. However, the final result was the complete opposite of what everyone had imagined. An existence at the high level of the Origin Void stage was instantly heavily injured by a young man around the age of 20. This caused everyone to find it hard to believe. All the people who had witnessed all of this were bound to have another topic to talk about enthusiastically. All of this had nothing to do with Su Yi. Hee-jun was held in Man Bao's mouth, and he occasionally pointed out a direction, whereas Su Yi and the others followed his directions. The Red Dragon Ridge was not a particularly large place. It was only a few dozen miles in radius. With the speed of Su Yi and the others, they passed through some mountain forests that could not be considered desolate. 30 minutes later, they arrived at a place that looked like a small town. What was different was that there were many flags on the streets. All of them had the word Blood Dragon written on them. There were also many blood-red dragon totems drawn on them. Moreover, they were slightly more popular. Su Yi and the others directly passed through the streets and headed towards the center. Along the way, many people saw them. Naturally, they also saw the Hee-jun that the man Bao spoke of. Many of them recognized him and could not help but begin to point him out. There were even some members of the Blood Dragon Church who were surprised and felt that something was wrong. They wanted to return to the church to inform their leader, but they were completely unable to keep up with the speed of Su Yi and the others. Not long after, Su Yi and the others appeared before a building. It looked like an ordinary mansion, and the words Blood Dragon Church were written on the door. Found it! Su Yi laughed softly. After nearly 2 hours, they had finally found the Blood Dragon Church. Without any hesitation, he dashed out and headed straight for the door. Roar! Behind him, the man Bao let out a low roar, asking Su Yi what he should do with Hee-jun who was in his mouth. Kill him. Su Yi's voice sounded. The man Bao did not hesitate at all and directly bit down, biting Hee-jun's body into two, causing him to die instantly. Immediately after, the man Bao also stepped forward and followed beside Feng Qi'er. Who is it? Stop! When Su Yi rushed to the door, the cultivators guarding the door shouted. However, before they could finish their words, they fell into a pool of blood. Su Yi's speed was extremely fast. In almost the blink of an eye, he had rushed into the courtyard. When he released his soul power, he instantly heard a woman's panting and shouting. As a virgin in 2 lives, Su Yi had also watched some porn in his previous life. He instantly recognized this kind of lewd sound. According to Shui Qianshou, Feng Yiming was extremely lewd, but he did not expect that he would be seeking pleasure in broad daylight. Su Yi frowned and followed the direction of the voice. Soon he found a house. He stood at the door and kicked it fiercely. With a bang, the wooden door shattered and fragments flew everywhere. Ah! A woman in the room screamed and grabbed the blanket on the bed to cover her body. On her body, a middle-aged man instantly turned his head and looked angrily at the youth at the door. He was at a critical moment, but he was suddenly frightened and could not help but be furious. Who are you? How dare you barge into my Blood Dragon Church? The middle-aged man stood up and walked down the bed. He pulled a robe and casually tied it around his waist before slowly walking towards Su Yi. His anger surged as his origin chi surged and his killing intent overflowed. The aura of the Origin Emperor realm spread out like a vast wave. You should be Feng Yiming, right? Sensing this aura, Su Yi was extremely sure that this person was Feng Yiming without a doubt. There shouldn't be a second person in the Blood Dragon Church with a cultivation at the first level of the Origin Emperor realm. Brat, no matter where you come from, I will tear you into pieces today. Feng Yiming was furious, completely ignoring Su Yi's words. He suddenly stomped on the ground, and terrifying origin chi surged, turning into a terrifying storm. The energy on his body expanded, and in an instant, the entire house was sent flying. The bed and the woman on the bed were also sent flying, and a bright red mist of blood exploded in mid-air. However, Sue, he stood on the spot and only took 2 steps back. He circulated the energy in his body to resist the storm. Boss, why don't I take action and take down this dog? On Su Yi's shoulder, Su Xiaoshui said to him through sound transmission. Su Yi shook his head silently, and then said through sound transmission, pay attention to the outside. Leave this dog to me. I can practice. He stared at the bare-chested, middle-aged man opposite him, and a strong fighting intent surged in his eyes. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.